All right, so let's hop right back into it, shall we?
Let's go. Break time. It's a 1 mana card. Oh,
nice.
I like the puppy card better. Can we go back to that instead of warrior?
We can go back to the puppy card. Look, he's a cute puppy card taking a nap. Oh. And he's a 1 mana 1/1. The game needs.
You know what's funny about this card?
What?
It's better than the next scheme we're about to see. Flip the card, please.
Fair enough. Go for it.
Dr. Boom's scheme. It's the next scheme card that we've seen. Let me start that sentence over. The next card is Dr. Boom's scheme, which is the second scheme card that we've seen. It is a 4 mana warrior spell that reads gain 1 armor, upgrades each turn. So, Azrael, I asked this question to Tripzik when I was on his and Rod Johnston's podcast known as Tier 5 Podcast.
Yep.
I asked Trip. I said, "How much armor do you have to gain for this card to be okay? How much armor does 4 mana give you?" Well, immediately, obviously, what came to mind was Branching Paths with 12, or, because he plays Wild, Greater Healing Potion, which is 12 for 4 mana. So that's the going price. Meaning, in order for this to be the same value, and now mind you, Branching Paths has other options, like it's way better than just 12 armor.
Oh, yeah.
It needs to be in your hand for a minimum of 12 turns.
In your hand. Literally in your hand. Not draw it on turn 12. Literally in your hand. 12 turns.
Yeah. I understand the warrior has ways to interact with having armor. I'm not waiting freaking 12 turns. I have to wait 4 turns. I have to have it in my hand for 4 turns for it to be better than me just hero powering.
Yeah. Yep.
Get out of here.
Yeah. This is a card that is only going to be good if you draw it on turn 1 and the game lasts to turn like 15 plus. Which, playing a control warrior, sure. But I mean, never when you top deck this card are you going to feel good. Never when you have this in your opening hand, which is an ideal circumstance, is it going to feel good. And never when it's the last card in your deck is it going to feel good. The times that it's going to feel good are that 1 in 15 games where you're past turn 20, you're low on life, and this card saves your bacon. But more often than not, it's going to be a dead card in your hand that you're wishing was any other card. This might possibly be the worst scheme in the set, and I don't know why it only costs... Why it costs four mana. Because we talked about this card the other day on the show, and I said hey, this card would be good if it was gain 2 armor, but then it would be broken, right? Mm-hmm. So, even if the cost was 6 mana gain 2 armor every turn, it would still be broken. So you can't increase the armor cost. So why does it cost 4 mana? At least if it was 2 mana, it would be like, okay, this is decent, right? It would be decent. But this at the current cost is so bad, it's not going to see play. And this, to me, this right now is my first, 1 out of 10 cards.
1 out of 10.
Moving on.
Improve morale. This should make us feel better.
Yeah.
It's a 1 mana warrior spell. This says deal 1 damage to a minion. If it survives, add a lackey to your hand. We talked about the lackeys a little bit earlier. Mm-hmm. Azrael, I know that we put a valuation on lackeys of being 3 mana worth of card.
Correct.
So how does that affect your valuation of this card?
Well, you're basically gaining 4 mana worth of stuff for 1 mana. Yeah, you have to spend the extra mana on the gain card to get it, but that's another 1 mana. So you're getting 4 mana worth of stuff for 2 mana over 2 cards. Mm-hmm. Additionally, this has the added effect of dealing damage to your stuff, which there's some synergy in Warrior 4. But you can also damage any minion with it. So this card also activates things like Execute and other stuff. So the flexibility plus the added value, I think this is actually a pretty decent card. Like this is a pretty okay card. Like it's not super great. It's not super powerful. There can be times where it's not the card you want. But I could see this. You'd be justified in running 2 of these in a lot of decks, or at least a 1 of in many decks. Overall, I like the card a lot. I don't think it's super great. I don't think it's going to be in every warrior deck, but I actually think it's just a well-designed card for 1 mana.
Get out of my brain, dude. This card is exactly a fine card. Yep. It's a card that you're going to So even the decks that it's not typically run in, you'll be able to put it in as a budget option or as a replacement for something else because it's a flexible card. It does so it works with Spellzerker and Mortal Strike, which now allows you to Now we're not going to go there. It works with Black Owl Gunspire. No, we're not going to go there. So yeah, no, it's just a solid card. It's a common card. What do you want from it? It's the oh god, I can't remember. I had a Magic card I was going to compare it to. Moving on.
The thing that I like about this card the most is it does what Warrior wants to do, which is what most Warriors want to do, like especially the control or even the Dragon control variants, which is it gets a lot of value. Gets a lot of value and has a lot of flexibility, which I think plays right into what a Warrior wants to do and what a Warrior wants to be. So I think it's an excellent addition to the Warriors repertoire, especially since Warrior is one of the classes getting hit the most with the expansion. They're literally losing all of their playable decks. So, and I'm not complaining about that. Yeah, I'm not complaining about that. I'm just saying though, if you like Warrior, in theory you have nothing to play. So giving them a card like this with some good value in it, I think is going to be good to help the class come back in a better way, I think.
How does this compare to Inner Rage?
Well, Inner Rage is 0 mana, but I'd rather have the 1 mana for the flexibility. So this is by far a much better Inner Rage, in my opinion.
Because I think Inner Rage is a fair card to compare it to because it's Blood to Ichor is just better than this card, and Blood Ichor is an old 1 mana card or 1 mana spell, deal 1 damage to a minion if it survives summon a 1/2 with taunt.
Yes.
And then Inner Rage is a 0 mana card that says deal 1 damage to a minion, give it +2 attack. So it's I think those 3 cards are similar enough to talk about and compare with each other, and I would rank them in this order. It would be Blood to Ichor, Improved Morale, then Inner Rage, and they all do offer a little bit of flexibility, but this one by far is the most flexible. It's just because you get a random lackey, you can't and you can't exactly control it, and Blizzard's going to continue to add more lackeys throughout the year.
Correct.
We can't say that it's better than the consistency, which we talked about not too long ago, of Blood to Ichor.
Right. And I think it's important to note that, too. You tend to rate cards on consistency and what do you do for me now, which are both things that are very important to winning, and they lend themselves to usually a more aggressive deck style, which is usually an effective strategy for winning. I tend to value cards more on their upside, their potential, and kind of those dream combos. But I think in this one, we're both in the same place. I think this is a very solid card. I think it's going to be in, I would say this is going to be in the vast majority of early Warrior decks for this first set. I would venture to say this is going to be in 80% of Warrior decks.
You're not wrong.
Yeah. I would give
this is an 8 out of 10 for me.
I was going to say 7 out of 10.
And this card is actually legit good.
Yeah, and I might be being conservative. So I think we're good. Let's move on. So next we have the 2-mana 2/2 Vicious Scrap Hound mech, which I love the art on this card too, by the way. Very, very cool art. And it has an interesting effect. Whenever this minion deals damage, gain that much armor. I love this effect, if nothing else, for the fact that they have never done something like this mechanic before, at least that I can think of.
There was a 4-mana 2/7 Ally Smith armor, I think.
I thought that was whenever that took damage.
Oh, you might be right.
Yeah, I think this is the first time where they've had a card that actually gives you armor for attacking. And if you can,
that's pretty cool.
Yeah, and if you could like combo this with things like, the thing that I think of right off the top of my head is Ziliax. You play this with Ziliax and you just get a ton of value. You heal up, you gain armor. There's a lot of things that have buff effects. When you play this after you play Dr. Boom, and then you combo it with something that has magnetic, and it becomes a 7/7 because you combo it with a Warmech or whatever. You're just gaining 7 armor, and it has brush on it. And so you're gaining 7 mana or 7 armor, and you're removing a dude. I just think the potential for this card is very, very high. By itself, it's okay. It's a filler card, but when you combo it, in the right things, it becomes very powerful. And that's pretty easy to do considering how many ways that Warrior has to come up with mechs and how many just solid mechs there are right now. So I think this, to use a term that I've used before, I think this is another high ceiling, high floor card. And the 2-mana 2 stat line is decent. I'm pretty optimistic on this card's potential. What about you?
So I don't think this has been said except for like 4 times in the past 2 hours, but Azrael tends to rate things on their potential, and I tend to rate things on what do you do for me now?
Correct.
This card does nothing for me now, nothing for me tomorrow, nothing for me on turn 2, and nothing for me on turn 10. This is a 2-mana 2/2 with a really, really cool effect. I didn't even realize it was different than Ally Smith armor, which makes it a lot cooler to me. Thank you for pointing that out. That's awesome. So as cool of a card as it is, I don't believe in it. I don't believe in the Vicious Scrap Hound. I just don't see how it can be played in a control deck. A control deck doesn't want to play a 2-mana 2/2 that gains you a. Okay, so for 7 mana and 2 cards with Ziliax, it'll gain you 5 health and 5 armor. Need to do more for me than that. You need to draw me some cards if I'm going to do 2. You need to draw cards if I'm going to expend 2 cards in a control deck. Mm-hmm. It just doesn't work for me. In an aggro deck, you're not going to play a 2-mana 2/2.
Nope.
In mid-range deck,
nope.
In mid-range deck, probably not. But that's where it would fit. It just would never go on turn 2. You'd have to drop it on like turn 5, exactly like you said. Combos.
Mm-hmm.
The more I think about Vicious Scrap Hound, the worse it gets in my mind.
Right. Well, let me ask you this: is it better or worse than Dusk Whisker Armorer?
Oh, that's a fair comparison. That is a fair comparison. I think it's worse.
Okay.
I think it's worse because you don't have as much control over it. You have to play this and then hope that they don't do anything. With Dry Whisker Armor, you just look at the enemy board and you're like, yep, he's got 3 minions. Let me just win the game.
That's fair.
Oh, sorry, not Odd Warrior anymore. But
That's fair. But that was my comparison. If Dusk Whisker Armor sees play, and this has a similar and I think more proactive effect, and it has that mech synergy. That's why I'm optimistic on this card. I'm not saying that I'm right, and I'm certainly not questioning your analysis of the card. I'm just giving my perspective.
I'm not saying I'm right either. Like I think I could be very far off on this one because it's not in the middle. It's not between the way we two think.
I agree. It's going to be one or the other. One of us is going to be right, and one of us is going to be wrong. This card is either going to be good or it's going to be bad. There's not going to be like, it's sometimes good, sometimes bad. I think this is going to be a very dichotomized card. Do you think that's fair?
I think that's fair. This
is the first card I think that we've come across that one of us is going to be flat right and one of us is going to be flat wrong, and that's okay. Yeah. I think. Do you think that's a fair assessment?
No, it is. It's just when I looked over here and I sighed a couple times, I was looking at the card again, and every time I look at it, I go, but this card is so. I want it to be good.
Yeah, but you just don't think it's not going to be. That's fine. That's fair.
Exactly.
What do you rate it?
I got this at a 2 out of 10.
I have this at a 4.5. Slightly below. Like going to see a good amount of play, but slightly above. Yeah, going to get experimented with. I honestly think that, like I said, for the reasons that I said, that it does have that potential. And I would not be surprised if this turned out to be kind of like, I don't know. Did anybody look at Ziliax when it first came out and were like, this card's going to be in every freaking deck? I'm not saying this is going to be Ziliax, but looks like one of those cards that's like hard to evaluate until you actually see it in practice.
This card is only good when Ziliax exists, though. Ziliax is good when this card doesn't exist. When no other card
Ziliax
exists.
Is just good. Ziliax is just good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, you give it a 2, and I give it a 4.5.
You give it a 4.5.
And we'll see where we end up in a couple of months.
God, you're gonna. I'm gonna eat that. I'm gonna eat this conversation so hard. You're gonna invite me onto your stream just so you can say "told you so" when you're just like hitting people with these bombs and staying alive with the.
No, you're gonna invite me on your stream and be like, "Dude, look, everything is aggro, including Warrior. This card sucks."
Yeah, right. So the next card that we're the next card that we're going to go over is called Sweeping Strikes. It's a 2-mana warrior spell that reads: give a minion, also damages minions next to whoever this attacks.
Cleave. Give a minion cleave.
Exactly. What I like most about this card is the correct use of the word whom over who. It's not next to whoever this attacks. It's I'm
Grammar Nazi up in here, guys.
I mean, it's in the genitive case. You gotta. Anyway,
I love the card art on this card, by the way. Dope card.
I didn't look at it that deep, but I didn't realize she was taking Sulthraz through a freaking troop of treants.
Hell yeah, she is. That is one BA goblin right there.
Yeah, but like for real, this card is. It looks insane. Calm down, everyone. It looks insane. I know. When I first saw it, I was like, I thought Shadowmourne was dead. I thought that Super Collider was going to go away because Baku went away. Like I had all these ideas, and this kind of broke that. But now thinking about it more, it's just not good. Like you're spending a whole card to do this. Why don't you just play a card that kills the opponent's minions? I'm not high on this card either, to be honest with you guys. Where are you at with this boy?
Well, I'll say this: the effect is very powerful, and if you don't believe me, play some Rexar. Get yourself a Hydra. You get yourself a Hydra and wreck some scary boards with it. The effect very powerful.
Is it worth a card though?
That's the thing. Is this going to make what are some of the most tight and refined lists in the meta? Like you look at Control Warrior in any meta is usually one of the tightest, like most refined lists around. And usually it's optimized very, very quickly because it gets played and iterated a lot. What do you take out to put this card in your deck, even with as powerful as it is, right? You're going to take out a Shield Slam? No.
Yeah, it can't fit in the Control Warrior. The only way I can think with a big warrior like we're thinking is Alkali the Rhino, but do you want to do that for? I mean, Alkali. No,
at least
you don't want to play
consistent.
Alkali the Rhino.
Yeah, I don't know. The effect is very, very powerful. I just think it's going to be too hard to get into the deck that it makes sense in, which is a Control Warrior. I don't see it getting in there over. Like, are you going to play this over Execute? It's a 2-mana card. Yeah. Are you going to play this over what's the Whirlwind card? Warpath?
Heck no.
Yeah. I mean, like, what do you take out to put this in? Even as powerful as it is. And if you do, you're running it as a one of, for sure. It's a one of tech card in like what, a Treant heavy meta?
No, you just hit the head on the head right there. It's a tech card. And this is the first time we've actually used that term to describe a card, because this card can be powerful. This card actually can be good, but it's so niche that it is actually meta dependent. It's not deck dependent. It's meta dependent. So this card at best will be a 5 out of 10. Like, I guess I skipped that a little, but at best will be a mediocre card, and on average will just be bad.
Yep.
It's like Stalking Geist.
Sometimes the card art gives a hint at what the dev team envisions a card being used for, and I think that is accurate. If we are in a Treant Druid heavy meta, this card's going to see play, right? If we're in a meta where, because you don't need this card against aggro hunter, right, or odd paladin or anything like that, because you've got Warpath and all the other and the dragon that deals 1 damage to everything and all the all that kind of stuff. Reckless Flurry. You don't need that. You need this for boards filled with 4 and 5 health minions, right? That's what you need this for, and the card art kind of implies that, right? So I think that niche cards are exactly that. When the niche is there, it's an 8 out of 10. When it's not playable. I give this card a 4.
I'm also on a 4. Like I said, on its best day, it's a 5. On its worst day, it's never played.
Yep. Next, we have Clockwork Goblin, a 3-mana 3/3 mech warrior minion. Battle cry: shuffle a bomb into your opponent's deck. When drawn, it explodes for 5 damage. So it's warrior specific minion warrior specific Sephorium bomber, but a goblin mech minion. So it has the mech synergy, which warrior wants. Has the bomb synergy, which apparently Blizzard wants warrior to want. And it's a okay statted minion. Like, yeah. Is mid-range mech bomb warrior going to be a thing? That's the question that we're going to have to ask with this card, the next card, and one other card that's coming up. So, is mid-range mech warrior going to be a thing? First, let's ask that question before we delve too much into this card, because that's going to kind of frame some of the conversation we're going to have, right?
Mid-range warrior is going to be a thing.
Yep.
It will have some mechs in it, but mech will not be one of the revolving themes in it.
I specifically said mid-range mech warrior.
And bombs will play a part in mid-range warrior. Mm-hmm. But it won't be the primary way. It'll just be like, oh, cool, an extra 5 damage rate, you know?
Yep.
But let's be real with ourselves. A 3-mana 3/3 do nothing is not good.
Right. Right. Because it's dependent on whether or not they draw that card. Right? I mean, if you put it in there and I was playing on ladder the other day, and I was playing Test Rogue, and I managed to shuffle a bomb into somebody's deck somehow. I don't remember how I did it. I think Sephorium Bomber. I don't know what I did. I somehow got a bomb into their deck, and I won because of it. Because we went to fatigue, right? Yeah, sometimes that's going to happen, but more often than not, it's going to be a card that goes into their deck and never even gets drawn. Mm-hmm. So it's a do nothing card, like you said. And I don't like using that term very much, but because I think sometimes it can be an overly constricting opinion of a card. I get it's realistic. Like if you're just playing on the board, it's not doing anything than just being a body. I know what you mean by that, but I mean it can constrain our ability to conceptualize a deck by tagging something that way too eagerly.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah. So, but that said, this isn't like a death rattle or a battle cry or, a send back to your hand or a resummon effect. This is literally random effect based on the number of cards that they have in their deck. And if they're playing Test Rogue, which we'll get to later, is going to be everywhere, they're going to have 105 cards in their, 60 card maximum, but you know what I mean. They're going to have a ton of cards in their deck. They'll probably never ever see this, right? I don't know. It seems like a design that looks fun and probably is fun if you can pull it off, but it's going to be too hard, too inconsistent, and too dependent on putting way too many cards in your deck that you don't want in your deck when there's just better options. For me, it's a pretty straightforward card, and I'm not very high on it. Yeah,
the only saving grace is that there are no good 3-drops in the game of Hearthstone right now. Now that Kobolds and Catacombs,
unless you're playing Beasts,
we don't talk about those unless. But yeah, so it does fill that idea that there's no real good 3-cost minions, but right. It's still no better. It's a role play in the deck that it's good in. It is a minor role player, and for that reason, I can't give it more than a 5. You're higher on
it than I was. I think it's a 3.5 at best.
Ooh, yeah. He says so. My bar for playability is normally a 4, right? Like it's usable if it's 4 or greater.
Yep, I agree. I would agree. A 4 is usable or better. I don't think it's. I think it's a. I want it to work, and I'm going to play with it. I'm going to play with Bomb Warrior because I think it's a cool idea. Because I love Dr. Boom, and we're going to get to that in a minute.
Oh, I can't wait for that card.
But I don't think that Dr. Boom needs this card. I don't think Dr. Boom needs this card. I could be wrong. I'd rather have 2 Sephorian Bombers and play better 3-drops or better other things than this. But that's assuming Sephorian Bomber actually works. But I mean, you could play Wrench Caliber and make it work better. And I'd much rather play a Wrench Caliber, 2 copies of Wrench Caliber than 2 copies of this.
Agreed.
Which we're going to get to in a second. So I think I could be wrong. And if I am wrong, this card will get upgraded to a whole 4. But right now it's a 3.5. I want it to work, but I don't think it's going to. So I'm a 3.5.
Maybe I'm the optimist on this card.
Sounds like it. Wrench Caliber is a 4-mana 3/2 warrior weapon. Reads, after your hero attacks, shuffle a bomb into your opponent's deck. This card is a bomb card that I actually like. It's a decent weapon. I mean, it's terrible price, but it's a decent weapon. It's a decent weapon that has a little bit of upside, and you're gonna get 20 damage into their deck with 2 of these in your deck if you're gonna run 2 of them. But I would much rather run 2 of these. This is just me, than 2 of those stupid goblins because, like I said, there's better 3-drops that I want to run. What are your thoughts?
So, I think this and the goblin do the exact same thing. Actually,
yep, they do.
They both get to trade once for 3, and they both put 1 bomb in the opponent's deck. The reason I say this is 1 is because everybody is going to run weapon removal because of Thoradol, Wrench Caliber. Super Collider is going to be so strong.
Oh yeah, it is. Yeah,
oh my god!
But didn't people say that everybody was going to run weapon removal after Boomsday, and like practically nobody did for a while?
Yep, but now everybody does. So people got smart.
Fair enough. And
but
plus,
I mean, like,
plus oozes are going to be like decent 2-drops again for a little bit. So there's that too.
But at the same time, you can't say, "Oh, it dies to Siphon Soul, so it's a bad card." You know, like
that's true.
So we need to be fair about it, but we also need to be realistic. So on average, I would say you're putting 1.5 bombs in your opponent's deck and dealing 4.5 damage to 2 minions separated.
Fair.
And I don't think that's good enough for 4 mana because oftentimes I'm now going to have nothing on turn 5, and they gain so much tempo by playing a 2 mana card and dealing with 4 mana that I just spent in a class that cannot afford that to happen because it doesn't have a supporting cast for a deck that this card would fit in.
Right.
And even if this turns out to be a deck, that tempo loss will be huge because it's going to be a mid-range deck. So it's just like I'm not high on Wrench Caliber. I think that it's marginally better than that dumb Goblin card we forgot the name of because we reviewed it so long ago.
I was going to ask you, if you had to pick, which would you rather run, this or the Goblin?
Yeah, I would. Okay, so personally, I would rather run the other one, even though I think this is a better card because I think the other one fits. I think the other one fits better into the strategies and the way that I would design the Bomb Warrior to work.
Okay, let me ask you this.
Like I said, it's just marginal.
Sure. Let me ask you this though: with one more bomb card, do you think the Bomb Warrior can work? And by one more bomb card, I mean we have to remember Sephorian Bomber is a thing. So if you put Sephorian Bomber into the mix with these other bomber cards, including the bomb synergy from Dr. Boom, which we're going to talk about in a minute, do you think that Bomb Warrior is going to work? Or do you think it's just a mid-range warrior that has a secondary win condition of them drawing enough bombs to kill themselves? Because I really want Bomb Warrior to work. I think it's a really fun idea. It's different. It's kind of cool. It's kind of neat to see Warrior doing something like that. But it just seems so like dependent on the other person's draw that you're basically playing a slightly overcosted mid-range warrior deck, which means you're playing behind because all of these cards are slightly overcosted or understated because they've got this bomb effect on them. And then in hopes that you do just enough damage so when the bomb finally goes off that it kills them. But the problem is the 5 damage bombs are so weak that usually they can not have to worry about it. Like how many bombs does somebody have to get hit by for the bomb mechanic to be worth it? Probably 3.
Well, so in the mid-range deck, the biggest problem in my forays into mid-range warrior, because I've trying to make that deck work for a while as well. I love my mid-range decks. Is that it lacks the burst that you're talking about from even just one bomb. Right. Like because Mortal Strike isn't good enough to make the deck. It's just not. That's a 4 mana warrior spell that says deal 4 damage. If you have 12 or less life, deal 6 damage.
Right.
It's not good enough because it's not versatile enough. This is more versatile than that. This is better.
Right.
So I think that I think just one bomb is good because of the deck, because of the context of where that one bomb would need to hit. Okay. In a control warrior deck where you're like trying to go to fatigue and have the bombs be the extra 5, no, you're right. Because that's just incremental damage, and anybody who can make it to fatigue with you, who's going to draw those bombs, can also deal with that damage.
Right. It's why
it's
like with Warlock. How many times?
Exactly.
How many times does a control warrior go to fatigue with warlock, and the warlock's like, yeah, whatever, I don't care, right? And that's the deck that's a class that's typically at half life anyway, and usually goes to fatigue at under 15 life, and they still don't care, and they sometimes still win.
Exactly.
So yeah, it helps you beat warlock, but other than that, like, what are you going to consistently beat? So let me ask you this: I mean, would you rather play something like this mid-range bomb warrior thing, or would you rather just play rush warrior?
I'd rather play Rush Warrior, and I actually have a Damage Warrior put together that I think is pretty cool, but still super top secret.
Gotcha.
But yeah, Rush Warrior is going to be sick. Rush Warrior is going to be awesome, and
Yes.
we're gonna rule the world with our Rush Warrior while everyone's sitting here trying to put bombs in the opponent's deck. We're gonna be sitting there just going face, and not like the hero's face, but their minion's face, because charge isn't a thing anymore.
Right. I would like this to be a deck because it seems fun, and I have a soft spot for warrior because I played a warrior in WoW for like half my WoW career. So I love the idea of tanking up and just hitting stuff in the face and just beating it into the ground. But this is just, it feels too slow in a world that's either going to be overrun with very fast aggressive decks or very long game decks, and this doesn't feel like it can compete with either one of those most of the time.
If there's no weapon warrior, then this card is not good. Like, even though I think
weapon warrior, yeah, I get that. Like, you're combining the bombs with weapons and just kind of chipping away at them and hoping that a bomb hits right when you have like lethal with your weapon or something like that. Yeah,
that's the only place where I really see it.
What do you give it?
What do you? Yeah, okay. I was about to ask the same way. I got this at a 4.5.
Straight
it's like,
4.
Yeah, I'm glad we're close. It's so almost there.
Yeah, like it's going to see some play. The reason why I have it at a 4 is it's going to see some play. It's going to see some experimentation. It's going to see some play in Weapon Warrior. People are going to use it to fill in we're lacking weapons that aren't Super Collider. Yeah. They're going to use it to fill in a weapon slot, but it's, for the most part, it's a worse Fiery War Axe. I think Fiery War Axe sees more play than this, but it's just good enough, just interesting enough where somebody might run one copy of it to win fatigue games or something like that, or to fill in a Weapon Warrior deck that needs just one more weapon to round out its curve or something like that. But yeah.
Yeah. Oh, Omega Devastator. Oh, Omega Devastator. Oh, Omega Devastator. This is a 4-mana 4/5 mech from the warrior class, and it reads Battlecry. If you have 10 mana crystals, deal 10 damage to a minion. Wait, hey, Az, I think there's a typo. I think you like overlaid this picture onto a different card, because like a 4-mana 4/5 is good enough if it doesn't say anything. That's a Chillwind Yeti.
Yep.
Is this a mistake?
Nope. I hear from the producer's room that this is the correct graphic.
Why are they giving Warrior good cards? Like, they gave nothing to Hunter. This card is insane. This card is nuts. This card is good in every single format Hearthstone you can play Hearthstone in.
Yeah. This might be one.
You're never mad to have it because you're ready to fit it into your curve anywhere at 4 mana, because at 4 mana you could play it alongside a 2-drop if you're playing a minion. If you wanted to just play it for, if you're playing a mid-range deck, if you wanted to play it for tempo, you could play it on its own on turn 10 alongside a 6-drop.
Yep.
Filling it out, destroying a minion, playing 2 minions to the board, having that huge Doomsayer type tempo swing. Like, imagine if Vilespine Slayer cost 1 less mana, didn't have combo, and got +1/+1. That's what this is.
Yep. This might be, that we've seen so far, the most consistent across the board good card. This is probably, I would say, of the cards we've seen so far, this is in the contention to be the best card we've seen so far.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I don't know whether to put it above or below Caladris, like Staladris. Like, I couldn't put those in order.
This is a 9 for me.
Yeah, 9. This is 9.
Straight 9. This is better than that because you can draw this on turn 4. and just play it as a Yeti, and you feel fine. You can draw this on turn 15 and delete a dude and have a dude left over. And usually they're playing one guy on turn 10. You can play this along with armoring up or doing something else. And not only you delete their big threat, but you also gain momentum and you still have mana left to play.
Not to mention you can play it with Mecha'thun. Double Galvanizer on Omega Devastator and Mecha'thun makes it for 10 mana to deal 10 damage to your own Mecha'thun. Wait, no, your Omega Devastator is left.
Yeah. But
whatever.
But still, a good idea. It's just... it's a card that anybody that understands basic concepts of value and tempo looks at and has to understand that this isn't a good card. This isn't a solid card. This is a great card.
This is what we will call a staple 6 months from now. We will call this a staple.
This will be in every deck. This is Ziliax in Control Warrior right now. I mean, this is just every.
Not to mention it curves into Ziliax.
Oh yeah. I was getting there. That was the next thing I was going to say. And the thing about this card though is that one of the things that makes it the best is that you look at this card, and even having this played against me, I don't hate it. Like if this was played against me, I'd be like, well, they deleted my dude. I prefer. Like I feel better about seeing this card than I do about seeing the dragon, the 7/4 dragon that deletes a dude.
Oh, the crude rooster.
Yeah. So like this, it's just a card that doesn't feel terrible when it's played against you. I really like this card a lot. 9 out of 10. 9 out of 10.
So here's the thing: its effect and its stat line is not powerful enough to be broken. Just like Candle Shot.
Exactly it. Yep.
This is just like Candle Shot in terms of power level. It's just way too good, but no one's ever going to point it as the problem because it's not the obvious problem. But it is the problem because it enables everything. This card, I already hate it because it's going to be in all these decks that I hate, but it's a great card and I can't wait to play with it.
And you were a 9 as well?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a 9 out of 10.
I think we covered all the bases with this. I mean, that's the thing about this card is it's so simple and straightforward. We don't have to say a lot about it and still can rant and rave about how much we love it.
Yeah.
Next, we have the Dimensional Ripper Warrior spell. 10 mana, reads summon 2 copies of a minion in your deck. So they're still trying to make Recruit Warrior a thing, apparently. This is only good in super duper greedy warrior decks, right? I can't see a way where this is good in anything else. For 10 mana, you got to be summoning. I mean, okay, so what's a 10 mana creature? A 10 mana is at very minimum an 8/8 with an effect. Realistically, you want something like a 12/12 or a 4/12, something like that with an effect.
Can we call our average 10 mana minion Mulch Muncher? 8/8 rush.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, it's an 8/8 with an effect. So Mulch Muncher or something similar to that. If you got 2 Mulch Munchers with this, you feel good. If you get anything else, which is 97% of what your deck is going to be, you lost the game.
The reason this card is bad is not because it costs 10 mana. I always evaluate 10 mana cards as being really bad because it's the only thing that you can do. They have to be super powerful. This is not super powerful. The reason that this is bad, though, is because Dead Man's Hand no longer exists in Standard. I'm serious. Like with Dead Man's Hand, this is good.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yes, because you're putting the stuff back in your deck. Yeah. Yep.
But without it, no, hell no.
Yeah.
It is copies though, so it doesn't take it out of your deck. So it is good for fatigue or for Fatigue Warrior, but there's nothing that supports this card.
That's exactly. You just took the words out of my mouth. This is another one of those cards like we saw with like 3 of the Hunters cards, and I think there was a Druid card that we saw too, but I don't remember. But at least 3 of the Hunters cards I can think of off the top of my head. That's a card that doesn't have the support for it to work yet. And it feels like they still want Recruit Warrior to be a thing, but Recruit Warrior is losing 2/3, 3/4, almost all of the cards that made it a thing in the first place. Because Recruit Warrior was really fun, but the Boom Ship is still there, so I don't know. I don't see how this card has any play.
Azrael,
Right now,
this
yes.
is how people like me and you are going to figure this card out. We're going to go onto twitch.tv and we're going to find Fibonacci streaming. And we're going to go into a stream and he's going to be sitting there for 12 hours straight at the rank 5 rank floor trying to make Dimensional Ripper work because he is the warrior guy. If you guys don't know Fibonacci, he is the warrior guy.
Shout out Fibonacci, please.
Yeah, dude. But I don't believe in it. I don't believe in him. Sorry, Fib. I don't know him personally, but sorry, Fib. I don't believe you can do it. Prove me wrong.
Yeah, the cards don't exist to make this work consistently. You can make it work in that 1 in 10, 1 in 15 scenario, but consistently enough to make this a viable card, which is what we're talking about here, the cards don't exist right now. Maybe in an expansion or two. And again, we got to reiterate this. Year of the Dragon is going to be a linked story over 3 expansions over the course of the year. In theory, the cards are going to build upon themselves and they're going to synergize upon themselves over the course of the year. So this hints at something that's coming. But right now, outside of Wild, this card doesn't have any value. I give this right now a 2 out of 10 because it's just.
I got this at a 0. Wait. I wasn't allowed to do that? Okay, 1.
Okay. I only say a 2 out of 10 because Wild is a thing, and there are like the super extreme case scenarios where you can maybe make this work, but it's not going to see any consistent, legitimate, constructed play.
It's going to take a much smarter man than either of us to figure that out.
You're damn right, but somebody's going to play it, and I'm going to end up seeing it and being like, all right, now I want to try it. What do we got here?
So the next one we're about to go over is a legendary warrior minion known as the Boom Reaver. It's 10 mana, just like we all love, and it's a 7/9 mech that reads Battlecry. Summon a copy of a minion in your deck. Give it Rush. Azrael, before I say anything about this card, what minion am I trying to summon?
Jesus, I would.
Exactly.
We just had this conversation.
Okay, so we already discussed this card. Hey, next.
Yeah. I'm like trying to think, like Dragon Warrior is the only thing I can think of the last card or this card working in, and it's going to have to be super greedy, and they're not. The question remains, are they going to have enough armor gain with losing Baku to live long enough? First of all, neither of these cards work with Baku, so I guess it's irrelevant anyway, but are they going to have enough armor gain to make, pulling Nozdormu or Deathwing out of your deck work? What do you want to do? Pull Mecha'thun out just because he's a 10/10? I mean, cool idea. Love the card art because it's a freaking war mech with a warhammer, but I don't. It's just they're trying to make Recruit Warrior work when the other cards around it don't exist. Like, oh hey, we made this card called the Boom Ship, so we want you to put all these big cards in your deck, and then you can pull them out with these other cards, so that when you get the Boom Ship, you have nothing to draw into your hand.
It's going to take a smarter man than me to figure this out. So
yeah, I'm not excited about this card.
I got this at a 5 because it's a lot better, and I can see some possibilities with it. It's a lot better than the last one. At least it has a body attached to its crappy effect.
Yep.
And a 7/9 is not insignificant. Well, let's be honest with ourselves. And like worst case scenario, it pulls out a 1/4. Then now you had a 1/4 rush alongside. So 5 out of 10. It still costs 10 mana.
Actually, on page 2 of my notes now, I have this one at a 4 out of 10. Playable, just not very much. Like there is potential for it. It is a decent body. Like if you have a limited collection, it's this might make your warrior deck just because you need a decent card. I don't know, but it's got mech attached to it. You're gonna get it with Omega Assembly at times. You're gonna discover it from Dr. Boom at times. It's gonna be fun when you attach it to the 3/8 that gives a thing. I don't know.
No,
I have no idea.
I neglect that notion.
Yeah,
don't ever do that.
I'm just throwing ideas out there. The point is that it's more playable than the last card, just because it has a body attached to it. Oh, you have an idea?
No, I was just thinking about how horrible it would be to put the nullifier, the beryllium nullifier that you were talking about. I'm crying right now at this 10/16 untouchable that you're now going to throw Ziliax on top of. I'm crying.
That's like a best case scenario for it, though. But hey, maybe you find a way to discover it in Hunter, and then you can pull it out of your hand with Galvatron. No, okay. Moving on.
Yeah. Yep. Next.
To an actually
decent card.
And I got to be honest with you. Okay. Those of you that know me, and X, you know this about me, but some of you might not. My absolute favorite card of all time in all of Hearthstone is the OG Dr. Boom. I remember when they showed the OG Dr. Boom card, and everybody's like, that's barely better than War Golem. That card sucks. I looked at that card, I was like, that card's going to be fucking bonkers. And yeah, I just dropped the F-bomb. I got so excited about that card. I was telling a buddy of mine back in the day, I was like, this card's going to be nuts. And he's like, you're crazy, dude. It's barely better than a War Golem. Why would I want to play this? And it's still, even with all the broken cards that are in Wild now, it's still played on the regular. I loved OG Dr. Boom. I loved it for the idea of it. I loved the card art of it. I love that card. This is literally Dr. Boom, almost exactly reprinted, except it takes just a little bit of effort on your part to make him true Dr. Boom. Even despite that little bit of effort, I love the card because of what he is. If nothing else, 7 mana for 7, 7/7 for 7 is okay. And if you get even one bomb out of it, it's worth it, because we all know how powerful those bombs can be. If you get 2 or more, it's as powerful as any card in the meta can be right now. Just for the value.
How dare you head me off at my leading questions?
All right, go ahead and say your piece.
So, Azrael, how many bombs do you need to have in the opponent's deck in order for this to get enough value? Well, Exiles. Yeah, you just had a high voice there. I'm not going to do that forever. As you said, you only need to have one bomb. You only need to have one bomb in the deck in order for this to be good, because Dr. Boom is good. But that means you just have to make your deck worse by playing one of these bomb cards.
Yeah.
Is Sephorian Bomber worth it? Is this dumb 3/3 for 3 Goblin worth it? Or is this Wrench Caliber worth it? We're asking. So the only one that fits in with this plan, I guess the Wrench Caliber and the Dumb Goblin fit in this plan, but the only one that I'm trying to run is the Wrench Caliber.
Me too.
Because the Wrench Caliber actually has legitimate value with this card,
yes,
as a mid-range way to slap down a couple minions. And if you get one, like you said, one bomb, you now have OG Dr. Boom, which is super strong. But the most important part that we didn't hit on yet, and the reason I actually evaluate this card so high, is it is a freaking goblin with a jetpack. So, it is a top tier card, easy. I'm not gonna lie. I think that in a vacuum, it looks a little. It looks like it needs something, but honestly, I don't think it does. I don't think it needs to be. I think it's competitive with any of the other legendary cards that we've reviewed so far, that we've given praise to.
I agree. Just because the stat line alone is the best stat line of any legendary we've seen. I don't think,
which is sad to say, because it's a 7 mana 7/7, which doesn't impress me much.
Right. But here's the thing, though: would you just play this without any bomb activators in your deck?
Without any bomb activators in my deck, no. Yeah. I wouldn't play a 7 mana 7/7.
That's the problem. That's the problem. So you have to play at least one bad card. But here's the upside: if you play one bad card in your deck, you have the potential to make this card like a 9 out of 10 card, right? Like without that one bad card, though, this card is what, 6.5 maybe, just because the stat line is acceptable.
I would put, it would be below a 7 mana 7/7. I'd give just play a good card.
Hold on, X. Hold on. Let me move point here, because you have to remember you're going to play this in the deck that runs Dr. Boom. You're going to play this in the deck that allows you to discover mechs, and there's a chance that you are going to discover a bomb to play this with. So knowing you're going to play it in that deck, you have, say, 2 Omega Assemblies in there. You have, say, Dr. Boom in there. At the very least, you have those cards in there. Even if you don't run any more Discover cards, you have, 8 chances on average to discover a card. And remember, you have a higher chance on average to discover Warrior cards. So if you have an 8 on average Discover mech cards, right? Is that worth it to run this without any other activators with 8 chances to discover at least one bomb activator?
Given 8 chances, yes. Given 6 chances, yes. Given 4 chances, yes. Given just Dr. Boom, yes.
So,
like, you convinced me. I think it's good just with Dr. Boom, with Blastmaster and the Doctor.
Yeah, as long as you are running 2 Omega Assemblies or Dr. Boom, this card I think can be played with no other activators, which is why I like it as much as I do, even without. And that's one of the reasons why I want to make that point, is because don't be fooled, like you said, by the trap plays of some of these combos. You don't need those other activators. If you're playing Control Warrior, Control Mech Warrior, the way you should be playing it, which is greedy AF, then you're gonna be using those Omega Assemblies after turn 10. You're gonna be using Dr. Boom to try and get that extra value and discover those minions. You're gonna have a reasonable chance, even if you don't do it every game. If you do it 4 out of 5 games, 3 out of 7 games, whatever. If you're doing it consistently enough to get those bombs in the deck, then this card is going to be worth it to play just with that. So I'm for that reason, this card to me has very low downside. So it's another one of those high floor, high ceiling cards, because if we know one bomb is good, 2 is OG Dr. Boom, anything beyond that is freaking bonkers. And so for that reason, I'm actually pretty high on this card, despite the requirement in order to get the bombs. I personally am at an 8.5 on this card.
I was at an 8 before you talked. Now I'm at a 9.
Well, there you go.
This card is nuts. This card is nuts.
It's a good card. It's a good card. So I'm pretty excited about it. And again, that's with full disclosure of my OG fanboyism on Dr. Boom. Because, I mean, just think about that old school art of him just being like...
Yeah, just...
And just
is that the same...
That's
is
my
that
pose.
The same pose you had on the socks?
That's my pose. Like, if you look on the EO social media stuff, how many times do you see me doing this pose or this pose or this pose? I
always,
like 90% of the time I'm doing the Dr. Boom, and you better believe that is what is in my head when I'm doing it.
Damn, I wish I could feel as good as that. Just even once in my life, feel like OG Dr. Boom. Because how does he? I'm going to go way too deep in. I'm going to start a narrative about Dr. Boom, and we're not going to be ever moving forward from this card if you let me go. So
we'll move on. We're moving on to Shaman now. Hit us off.
Heck yes. Shaman, actually my favorite class.
We forgot to talk about the State of Warrior real quick. Just real quick, we're going to take a minute or two each, and we're going to talk about the State of Warrior. Given where they were, what they're losing, and where they're at now, go.
Fatigue Warrior is dead right now. As we know it, Fatigue Warrior is dead. It doesn't exist with Baku. It doesn't exist with Dead Man's Hand. It doesn't exist with, I don't know, like a bazillion other things that enabled it to exist. Enabled it to do nothing until Fatigue happened.
Yes.
Thank you, Blizzard. Yeah, Blizzard's right there, in case you're wondering. Thank you. We did have a couple of fringe decks out there, though, of Warrior. One was a Rush Warrior that actually was on a couple tier lists for a while.
It's getting more popular, too.
Deck. Yeah. It deals with Hunter fairly well because you are able to decide when and where the trades are made. That's why I like Rush Warrior and the Rush mechanic, because it allows you to do something proactive instead of just simply being reactive. You explained it with the Summoning Sickness and how that affects everything. And Warrior is a class, because its hero power doesn't mean anything unless you're going to Fatigue. It needs to have those options to be proactive, because every other class's hero power is worth half of a card. 2 armor. I'm not playing Ironhide, which is 1 mana for 5 armor. There's not a chance in heck that I'm gonna, it's not even close. So I think that Rush Warrior is a halfway decent deck. And the other fringe deck that you see outside of Mechathune Warrior, which let's not even talk about, is Damage Warrior. Damage Warrior is something that's been around since Frothing Berserker was introduced, in the Classic, right? Or Vanilla.
Right.
Classic.
Right.
Everyone's been trying to make Frothing Berserker work because it's such a powerful effect. We are losing Blood Razor. However, we still have Warpath, and we have it's the Revenant. It's the one that gets +1/+1 for each damage minion you have. It costs 5, and it runs a lot of really bad cards. But again, in tandem, they don't feel too bad. With improved morale, I'm looking at Damage Warrior as probably being the best warrior. No, it was for each damaged minion you have when you cast it, it's a 3/3 for 5. It gets +1/+1.
Yeah. Okay, yep. I don't remember what it's called, but I know what you're talking about. Yep.
Yeah. I can't remember the name. It slips me. It's just so bad. I never see it. You know.
Okay. So where's Warrior going to be now?
Yeah. So Warrior is going to be in the top third.
You think so? You think it's going to be a top 3 or top 4 deck?
It's up there. I think it's going to be good because I honestly got think that that Damage Warrior is going to evolve to become a thing. Like I don't know.
Sure.
Maybe I'm just too hopeful. Maybe I'm just way too hopeful for where Warrior is going to go because I want it to be so far away from the Odd Warrior that made so many good clips for me. Yeah,
Nope,
exactly.
I got you. I largely agree with you. So we're on the second grouping of decks. This is kind of the grouping of decks that's kind of like in the middle as far as like could be really good, could just be mediocre, but it's probably not going to be bad, right? I think Warrior is still going to exist. Some version of Control Warrior has existed almost ubiquitously throughout all of Hearthstone. There's very few times where Control Warrior has not in some form been at least present in the meta. We are seeing, like you said, I'm not going to go over things we're seeing Warrior losing because you summed them up perfectly, but we are seeing the rise of some mid-range Warrior decks with like the Rush Warrior for the reasons that you outlined. And I think that the cards that exist now are going to help push the archetype forward. I don't think Warrior is going to disappear. I think it's going to need a little more for it to be as prevalent as it was under the Odd Warrior dominance of Odd and Odd Quest, but I still think it's going to be in the top half. I would put it probably as the 5th strongest class in my mind. Not quite in the top third, but not quite in the bottom half either. So I'd put it as the 5th strongest class. Right there on the cusp. The problem is that 2 of their most important cards are complete. Actually, probably I would argue 3 of their most important cards are garbage. And that's a problem when you have 3 cards that are terrible and you're losing so much strength. Like Hunter had 3 cards that were garbage, or at least not good enough right now. But their archetypes right now are largely surviving. Warriors are not. So they need a little more than that. So that's where my concern comes in. So, but overall, I think that's where I'm at with them. So is there anything else you want to say before we move on now?
Nail head.
Do it. You were going to introduce.
I'm going to introduce Shaman, which is actually my favorite class. I've always loved Shaman because Shaman does random right. The reason Shaman does random right is because all Shaman cards are bad.
Yes.
So when you get a random Shaman thing or a random Shaman thing happens, you're never mad. You go, oh, haha, he rolled Bloodlust instead of Ice Fishing. You know?
Right. Oh, he got Bloodlust the one time. It's usually Ice Fishing. Yeah. Yeah,
like you're just not mad.
Right.
So it's always fun, and I love Shutterwalk. Shut up, Az. I love Shutterwalk. I love all sorts of different. I love all sorts of these just foolish things that Shaman can do. So I'm excited for this one in particular.
Okay.
Mutate is the first card we're going to go over. It's a 0-mana Shaman spell that reads: transform a friendly minion into a random one that costs 1 more. Where this fits into is nowhere. This card is bad. Will not see any play, and I don't want to even imagine they wasted a freaking slot on this card in Shaman when they could have put a card that I don't know I could use. I don't want to go through another 12 months and only see 1 month with Shaman in it. Can you at least have it say, I don't know, could it just be a 0/1 that's with Battlecry do that?
Okay, so this card will see play because Hagatha exists. This card will see play because Witch's Apprentice exists. This card will see play because the ability to get random cards pooped in your hand exists.
Mm-hmm.
This card will also see play because Murloc Shaman is going to be a thing, and somebody's going to put this in there and try to get cute, and it's going to happen because people like Evolve. They love that mechanic. That's why they keep it around. Is it a good card? No, it's not a good card. It's the only thing this card is good for is to it's like a 50% heal, right? Like, but I would much rather run the other card that does the same thing but just straight up heals your card. The ancient, what's it called? Ancient something, the shaman card.
Ancient healing.
Yeah,
So
I think
heal
that's
something
what
to pull gives a taunt.
Yes. I'd much rather run that card. Yeah, it costs more mana, but at least it's not.
It does something.
Yeah, it's not garbage, right? Because how many times are you going to just like upgrade it and be unhappy with the upgrade? It's a filler card. It's probably designed to water down Hagatha just a little bit because Hagatha is kind of bonkers. And it's a filler card. There has to be some filler cards. Shaman's in a good place right now. Believe it or not, I think Shaman's in a good place right now. They don't need a lot more strength because they're not losing a lot of stuff. They're actually, I think they're pretty strong.
They're losing Calamos, right? Yeah. I think Calamos is Catacombs. Calamos was central.
You might be right, but even losing Calamos though, I think Calamos was Ungoro, right?
Oh yeah, Ungoro. You're right.
But
I didn't mean to say that.
Even still losing him though, like what else are they losing? They're losing him. They're losing Thrall.
Runespear.
Ooh. They're losing Runespear, which is not played. Thrall's not played. Runespear's not played. Calamos is only played in a few decks. They're not losing a whole bunch, but they're gaining some aggression in this new set. I actually think Shaman's in a pretty good place. So to see them get kind of a blah card, I'm okay with. It'll be funny when people pull this and they play it right before they concede to show you that they got screwed by their RNG. But other than that, I don't think we're going to see this card a whole lot. Every once in a while, like every 20 times this card is played, they're going to get like Deathwing and you're going to cry. But most of the time, it's going to be like, oh, I almost feel bad for them.
Why did they upgrade into an Ancient Watcher that thing can't even attack?
Yeah.
The Darkness, the best evolve.
All right. So, are you ready to grade this card? Do you have anything else to add?
Oh, I thought I already did. Didn't I say bad?
Bad isn't a number.
Bad is a bad number. 2.
I'm also going to say a 2. I don't want to say a 1 because somebody's going to throw this into their like attempt at a mid-range or aggro deck, and this is like cheap heal for their guys to get a little extra value, or they're going to try to get cute with some sort of like spell heavy combo deck. So it's going to see a little bit of play, but it's not going to be good too. Next we have one of a few Murloc cards that we have coming. I joked on my Twitter the other day that this expansion should be called Rise of the Murlocs because it's not just Shaman that's going to see Murloc, guys. They're getting enough Murlocs now. You're going to see the return of Murloc Paladin. You're going to see the return of Murloc Warlock. You're going to see the return of Exile's favorite Murloc Mage. People are going to be playing Murlocs again, guys. Sorry, it's just going to happen. So that said, Shaman's getting the most Murloc love, but you're going to see it in other decks as well. 2 mana Shaman spell, Soul of the Murloc. The text reads, give your minions Death Rattle, summon a 1/1 Murloc. X, the question that comes to mind right away is, why would you play this, other than the mana cost reasons, over the other give your cards X Resurrect spell? The summon a totem one instead. Because totems, I would argue, are equivalent to the Murlocs, but they also give you things like spell power, right? They all work with Bloodlust.
Yeah, I'm not even thinking about Bloodlust. I'm thinking about Murloc War Leader. I'm thinking about a totem can attack without help. So it's just a way to maintain aggression through a board clear. It's aggression. It should severely downgrade your board.
Right.
It should. But also, if you partner this with Mutate, what you can do is you can play Soul of the Murloc, and then you can mutate whatever Soul of the Murloc hit, so that way you can just get rid of both of those bad cards out of your hand and not worry about it.
Somebody in chat mentioned that the other card is rotating. I'm not talking about Spirit of the Echo. I'm talking about the one that gives your minions Death Rattle summon a random totem, which is not rotating. And the reason why I mentioned that card, where I was going with it, was because there are cards that exist that if you have all the totems, you can summon Alakir, for example. There's arguably synergy for that card if you're playing a wide board. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I was just trying to clarify.
No, I got you. I was just saying that it's a bad card. I'm gonna put it this way, even in Murloc Shaman, it's not good enough. Like,
I agree.
No, I'm going with a no.
You know when you're going to see this card in decks a lot?
When you play Wild?
When you play rank floors.
Oh, true.
You're going to see this. Sorry, guys. You're going to see this at rank 20, at rank 15, at rank 10, at rank 5, and at like 3,800 legend.
True.
When people are trying to have meme fun with Shaman Murloc decks. But I'm going to be honest with you. There's going to be much better ways to pull off Shaman Murloc. You don't need this card in there at all. Maybe as a one-of, maybe, but I don't even think you need that. What this is another way to make Hagatha a little weaker. Yeah,
it's actually trash with the Hagatha.
Oh, that's what I mean. It's going to make it a little weaker because at best you're probably on average going to give this to what, 1 minion, maybe 2? Because
0, I think.
Yeah, because you're killing your own board when you play Hagatha. So, what do you give this card?
Yeah, this has got to be a 3.5.
What do you give it? What do you give it if Murlocs are ruling the world in 3 weeks?
If Murlocs are ruling the world in 3 weeks, 5.5. It's still not good.
Right.
Like if Murlocs are ruling the world, you got to understand a 5.5 isn't going to make the cut for the deck. Correct. It's just going to mean that it has synergy with the deck, and if you replace a different card, like one of the more optimal cards with this card, it's not going to make the deck too much worse because it says Murloc on it.
The only thing this does is help people without a complete Murloc collection or complete collection, help them pull off Murloc combos.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Yeah, it's one of those, like you mentioned earlier, it's one of those trap cards that looks like it's because it has synergy, because it says summon Murlocs, but it's a trap card. There are better ways to do Murloc, and I'm sure, X, you're going to discuss it with some of the cards we have coming up. I know I am. I give this card a 4.
Ooh.
I only give it a 4 just because we're going to see it all the time at the rank floors. That's the only reason why.
Barely
if the rank floors did not exist, we would not see this card.
Yeah. I agree. It's barely, almost, not nearly ungood enough.
Ungood enough, guys. Trademark. Speaking of an actually good Murloc card, do you want to handle this one? Because you got kind of one last time.
Sure, let's go. So this non-miserable card is a 2-mana 2/3. So Underbelly Angler is the next card we're going to cover. It's 2-mana Shaman Murloc minion with stat line 2 attack and 3 health. And it reads, after you play a Murloc, add a random Murloc to your hand. The first thing that comes to my mind when I read this card, like the text, I'm going to go backwards from what I normally do. I normally go vanilla then next, but I got excited for this because the card I want to compare it to, first off, it has Tasty in the title. Secondly, it's a Murloc with a chef hat. Right?
We'll get to that card in a little while, but yeah.
No, that's so Murloc Tasty Fin, I think it's called. It's a 4-mana card, 3/2, Death Rattle, draw 2 random Murlocs for your deck?
Yes.
Or something?
2.
Yeah. I don't remember what set that was released in. But it's
this
bad.
Last one, I believe.
Oh, really? Well, either way, it's bad and doesn't see play and won't see play until Murlocs rule the world. This is a good version of that.
Yes. This card is bonkers.
This card's nuts. This card is good
insane.
in anything.
Yes.
It's a 2-mana 2/3. If you just play 2 of these and no other Murlocs in the deck, I think it's almost good enough. If you're playing no other Murlocs in the deck and only these 2,
because you play one, then you play the other one, get a random Murloc, play that one, get 2 random Murlocs.
Infinite.
It's yes. Oh yeah, no, I'm with you. The stat line alone justifies considering it in an aggressive Shaman deck just because it survives. And if you play it in a Murloc deck with even just a small Murloc package, the basic Murloc package, which is which would be something like these 2 cards plus 2 War Leaders plus what are the ones that give plus health? Oracles, right?
Yeah, Cold Light or no,
the other
Cold Seer Oracles.
Yes, Cold Seers. Yes, Cold Light Seers.
Yes.
Right? Yes. If you play just those right there, that's 6 cards, all kind of low cost. You can play those alone and have a really good steamroll, and then just play the legendary. Throw the legendary in there because it's a 4-mana 4/4.
You know what? I take back what I said earlier about the Murloc Prime Tasty Fin because you brought up a good point. This, rather than that, it reminds me of the Shaman Quest because it's better than that.
Yes.
Less conditional, and it's not bad.
Yeah, this is a solid card. This is a solid
Yeah.
card. This is a card that could see play outside of Murloc decks.
I absolutely agree.
Yeah.
For me, I got to give this a 7.5. Oh my god, I want to put it at an 8, but I just know if I do that, I'm setting myself up for disappointment.
Here's the thing. I actually have it rated at 8.5, and here's why. Because
let's go. Tell me.
Shaman Murloc Shaman is going to be a deck. It's gonna be a deck. It will be a deck. It's easy to make. Like literally, you can just pick Shaman, type in Murloc, click all the buttons you can at random, as long as you hit the legendary and hit these 2 cards in there, and you're gonna have a viable deck. And maybe if throw 1 Bloodlust in for shits and giggles, I don't know. But the point is this this deck, this card along with the Murloc legendary are enough to build even a poorly selected random Murloc deck around, I think.
Yeah.
If you can just get a little bit of card draw in there, so you can draw into it with things like the Tasty Fin, you're good to go. You remember, what was it, 2.5, 3 years ago when Murloc Warlock was everywhere?
Nah, I just started playing in April.
Okay, well then never mind. But I remember 2.5, 3 years ago when Murloc Warlock was everywhere, and this is going to be that deck. It won't necessarily be a tier 1 deck. It'll probably be consistently in the tier 2 for a while, but people are going to play a lot of it because it's going to be fun, it's going to be cheap, and it's going to be easy to make. So we're going to see a lot of it. And just because we're going to see so much of the deck, I got to give it an 8.5, just for sheer volume.
Yeah, I think that's a fair valuation and a fair reason.
Okay. Anything else? Okay, moving on. Next, we have, I don't know why this one is so much...
It's the tiniest little sludge slurper available.
I don't know why it's so disproportionate compared to there. I'll make it bigger. There we go. Sorry about the weirdness, but whatever.
I love it.
So this is I don't know who did the last one, but I'll just take this one. This is a 1-mana 2/1 Shaman Minion Murloc, the Sludge Slurper. Battle cry, add a lackey to your hand, overload 1. I have some interesting thoughts on this one. Go ahead.
Same. How much mana was a lackey worth, did we decide?
3.
Okay, we decided that was 3 mana. This card is worth 1 mana. If I play this on turn 1, then on turn 2, how much mana will I have available to me?
You will have 1.
How much does a lackey cost?
1.
Seems good. I like the card. I think it fits in every Murloc deck. I think that but it's very specific to that. It might fit in some aggressive non-Murloc strategies. And as the year goes by, depending on what the lackeys look like, that might have an effect on how much it's played or how good it actually is. But I think overall, it's a solid card, and this is probably the best designed card, in my opinion, to this point, because it fits the shaman. It fits the shaman identity. It fits the shaman class identity. It has the overload mechanic, which punishes you a little bit, which shaman loves, because if you're playing shaman, you're already a masochist anyway. And then it integrates the new lackey thing. Yeah. And the 2/1 stat line is actually decent if you're playing with Murlocs, because you intend for all your stuff to die and for you to lose the game. So I think overall it's a good card.
I'm close to where you're at. I actually think that this is a bonkers card.
Oh, really?
I think this card is really, really good. I think this card is going to see play in 80+% of Shaman. At least,
no way.
At least for right now. At least for this expansion. I think that. Okay, well, let me ask you this: would you rather play this or the Witch's Apprentice?
That really depends on the deck, but most likely this.
Just in a vacuum. Like if you
no context, this one.
Yeah. Just it's more value. It's more value, and it's something that can actually do something other than just be a taunt on the board, right? Yeah,
it's about the consistency for me. It's
sure.
If it was discover a spell, then I would have to think about it.
Sure. If it was discover a spell, this would be bonkers. Or if
Witch's Apprentice was discover a spell, this one is add a lackey. So yeah.
If Witches was discover, it would probably be 2 mana anyway, because that's really powerful. Because Shaman has a lot of garbage spells, right?
Mm-hmm.
But this card is good enough to be a 1-drop in almost. I mean, there are going to be some super control decks which don't really care about 1-drops, but generally speaking, this is going to be a good enough value to be in almost every shaman deck except for the super greediest of greedy shaman decks, I think. And the fact that this is a 1-mana Murloc, I mean, almost justifies combining this with this guy. Like, you could run 2 of these and 2 of these in almost every shaman deck, right?
Just any deck that cares about the board, yeah.
Yeah, just a base opening, and then your turn 3 is your it could be something like your Flame Tongue Totems, and you have a mediocre opening with some upside. And the lackeys are powerful enough to where the downside from the overload is going to be made up for on turn 3 when your mana is clear and you can use whatever that lackey benefit is. I just think it's a well-designed card. I love that it's aggressively statted. I love that it has the Murloc tag in a deck that's going to be real happy about playing Murlocs. And the upside of the lackeys is I think pretty apparent. I think this is quietly one of the most underrated and overlooked cards in the deck in the set. I really think this card's upside is really, really high.
I hope you're right. 6.
7. I think it's going to be in. Originally, it was a 6.5, but I actually upped it while I was talking because I convinced myself that I think it's better. I think this card is going to be in a lot of decks.
Yeah, at a 6, it's a passing score for me. Like, I like it. I'm not. Yeah,
that's fair. You don't have to 100% agree. We're close, but I might be a little overly optimistic on it. I just think it's a really well-designed card, and I
like it better when it's small. It's cuter that way.
Fair enough.
So Muck Morpher is a 5-mana. Is the next card we're going to cover. It's a 5-mana 4/4 minion. It reads Battlecry. Transform into a 4/4 copy of a different minion. Wait for it. In your deck. Holy crap, is this bad?
Really?
Right, because it doesn't get the battle cry of whatever it transforms into. It's a 5-mana 4/4. I'm not going to play anything with Death Rattle. What do I want it to transform into? Maybe Malygos? Mally Shaman's the only thing that makes any sense to me, in which case, I'm playing Mally Shaman and I should probably just lose the game anyway.
Mally Shaman is a deck that I actually was before we even had all of the cards revealed. Mally Shaman was a deck that I was already thinking could be viable in the new expansion. I don't know if it'll be good, but I think it'll be viable. There are also some other things that don't necessarily care about battle cries, right? Like these, like if you have some of the cards we're going to look at, for example, the whirlwind effects. Like think about having the Mecha Whirlwind guy. The elemental that has whirlwind and Alakir, right? If you hit on one of those guys, give this guy some plus attack, you're dealing ridiculous amounts of damage, and you haven't even played those minions yet. There are combos that this goes back to the thing I was saying about pulling specific cards out of your deck. If you build around these mechanics, you get extra bonus effects of those mechanics, right? So this is a way to cheat out those mechanics early, just like we saw with Priest and their ability to, what's the spell called? Summon a 5/5 copy of whatever, things like
Shadow Essence.
Anytime you can cheat out a specific thing or draw a specific thing or mimic a certain thing, there are ways that people are going to find to make that work in some sort of broken combo. I think that it might not be obvious, right? Not yet. And without sitting down and actually like theory crafting some decks out. But I think that the potential for this card to enable broken or OTK effects, it's going to make this card better than we initially want to view it. I see this card, it could be a complete miss, and I could be way wrong because it's too hard and too inconsistent to pull off. But I think if you specifically build around it by putting just a handful of super powerful minions in your deck, you, especially a guy like you, Mr. X, could come up with some really sick ways to make this card broken AF. So I think this is another one of those high potential. The thing is, it's a high floor but low ceiling card, because this card, unless you tech very specifically unless you build very specifically for it, you can miss horribly with this card. Like, this is not a card you want to put in a deck that's got 12 or 15 minions in it. This is a card that you want to put in a deck that's got like 5 or 6 minions in it. And you could easily get a copy of your other Muck Morpher as well. But
you cannot. It says a different minion in your deck.
Oh, I guess you're correct. I guess I didn't get that. But you see what I'm saying? You see where my brain is at? Yes,
100%. And I love how excited you are for this. However, I guess I'm just used to being crushed. So I look at fun shaman cards and I'm like, it's a fun shaman card. It's going to be bad. Let me make a counterpoint to you real quick. So you, as you said, you can't play this with a bunch of minions in your deck. It needs to be very specific so you can cheat out. When we were reviewing the previous card, you said something about shaman spells. How did you refer to shaman spells? Did you say that shaman spells were good? It's because we were talking about Witch's Apprentice, how this compared.
Right.
Were shaman spells good, or were shaman spells some other adjective?
They're on average bad.
Okay, so you have to put in your deck a bunch of on average bad cards with this on average bad card.
Did you?
Did I leave?
Hello? No, you're still here. You're good. I see you. What's wrong? I got you.
Hello?
Yeah, I can hear you. I can hear you. You there?
Yeah, my world just paused for a moment. Apparently, I don't know why.
Lag
Weird.
spike.
But yeah, exactly. So here we.
Did you ever play Ebola Shaman?
Ebola Shaman, yeah, of course. Shutterwalk, of course.
No, like old school. Like no, you didn't play in GVG. Ebola Shaman was a spell heavy shaman deck that ran things like 2 copies of Doomhammer, 2 copies of Earth and Rockbiter Weapon, and like all of the
and the 3/4 and
all of the
7/7.
all of the nuki stuff, right? It only ran like 12 spells and like 15 minions or something like that. But it took the best smorky spells that Shaman had and basically win face. And this is the kind of card that could fit into a new version of that. But instead of using things like the Tunnel Trogs, you use Wind Fury minions, right? So you put in a couple of Wind Fury minions and things like your
1 second, I'm having a little bit of technical issues, Ezreal. Sure. I can't hear you again. I need to.
Sure. Yeah, guys, X is on vacation. He's on location, not vacation. He's on location. His wife is graduated from boot camp, and she's on her way to another military thing, and he's traveling with her. And so he's coming to us from a hotel room right now, and the internet is spotty at times. We've been pretty lucky so far. We haven't had any issues, but apparently we finally ran into some. So give him just a minute to address those issues.
I think things are better.
You good?
I'm pretty sure. Because Windows said so, and Windows has never lied to me or failed me before.
I like it.
So, what I was getting at is you have to play a bunch of bad cards to make this bad card a little less bad. And I know you were saying about Aboladin, it was running a lot of minions, and I'm paused again on my side, and I can't see you or hear you. But I'm going to keep talking and pretend like everything's okay. And yeah, so I can see the comparison you're trying to draw, but there's not that same sort of minion support for it. This doesn't fit in with the Murlocs. I don't know. I guess I'm going to go straight up Ohio on this one and call it show me.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair. I want to clarify. I think that this is a high upside, but high ceiling, low floor. Like, this card is either going to hit big with the kind of crazy things I'm thinking about, or it's going to miss horribly. The support might not be there yet. This might be another card that, like, next expansion, we're looking back on going, hey, remember that Mug Morpher card? But right now it's kind of up in the air. So where are you at with this card?
This needs to be Baleful Banker.
Okay. Where are you at with this card rating wise?
Okay. So rating wise, like this card, I can't. Like I said, it show me, and if I immediately can't think of some sort of crazy way to make it work a little bit, then I'm doubtful for I'm doubtful for its prospects. For these reasons, I have to give it a 4. Like
Fair.
it'll be somewhere, but I don't know. I don't see it.
Here's where I'm at with it. If it hits the upside that I see, it's like an 8 out of 10. But where it's at right now, and realistically, I'm at a 4.5.
And I hope I'm still here.
You're still here, buddy. You're still here. We're good. You good?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
I gave it a 4.5.
Okay.
And I said if it has the potential, if it hits the potential that I think it could hit, it's like an 8 out of 10. But realistically, where it's at right now is probably a 4. So I went a little bit above that because I'm kind of optimistic, and one of the reasons why is cards like this one here.
Mm-hmm.
This is an example of why I think that card might have some potential. If you want to go over this card.
Yeah, sure. So Walking Fountain is the next card we're going to cover. It's an 8 mana. It's an 8 mana elemental shaman minion that has 4 attack and 8 health, and it reads Lifesteal, Rush, Wind Fury. Yep. If you were looking for a way to incorporate Stormwatcher into your deck, but was like, damn, I need to use this slot for Lifesteal, then this is the card for you. If you were looking for a halfway decent card to put into an arena deck as your final bomb, this is the card for you. If you're looking to win games, dust this card.
So you're not hiding this card at all. I like this card's potential.
Not what?
I said you're not hiding this card then. Can you hear me?
Ezra, I'm having serious issues, my man. I cannot.
Is it your headphones or is it the internet?
No, it's the internet. It's the internet. It keeps dropping out.
It's weird. Well, while you take a minute to look at that, I'll say my piece on this card.
Sounds good.
I see some potential with this card for its synergy with things like the muck morpher that we just talked about, and I see some interesting potential for this in a like controlling type of shaman because its ability to act on the board immediately, and its synergy with some of their resurrect effects. Like you can put Ancestral Spirit on this or whatever and get a little extra value out of it, and it's just an elemental. I think it's an okay card. I don't think it's going to be good in anything other than a very specific deck designed around utilizing its Lifesteal, Rush, and Wind Fury. But I do think that because it has those 3 texts on it, it's going to see quite a bit of experimentation, and it will eventually find a home in a deck, and a deck that probably combines it with the Mecha Wind Fury elemental or the Mega Wind Fury elemental that we're going to talk about later, and along with Alakir. Did you get your sound? Excuse me. We can't hear you, X. Okay.
Sorry about that.
There you go.
I was able to hear most of what you said.
Okay.
What happened is my computer decided, Norton's internet security decided to start running, of course, and it gives me no option to shut it off or stop it. So here we are.
Okay. Welcome back, though.
Yeah. So you said in the Mega Wind Fury deck with Alakir,
yes.
And I just think that you're being way too hopeful in a way too greedy deck with a class that doesn't have nearly enough support, and you're just trying to find a way to make the last bad card work so you can throw that in my face on the stream where you're throwing everything else in my face. So
I'm going to be honest with you. Shaman is one of those classes that I have habitually tried to make super greedy BS work with. I remember trying to make Ancient Watcher or Ancestor's Call. I used to try to make that work all the time in Shaman just because it was fun. Like Shaman is one of those classes that just I think allows you to be super greedy if you can pull it off, kind of in the way that Priest does, but not as good as Priest because they're not Priest, they're crappy Priest.
Exactly.
But I love the potential for cards like this, and that gets me excited, and it gets my gears rolling about things that I really want to try to do, even if it's bad.
That's you hit the nail on the head with why I love Shaman, because there's so much potential in every single card, because they make Shaman cards, every single one of them, 10 out of 10 times, they are all almost good enough.
Right.
So, like, for example, if this was 4 mana, it'd be playable. But at 8 mana, no. It'd be, you know what I mean? Like, it's just, it's almost good enough. Do I want to play a card that is described as a walking fountain, that has the head of a lion, is made out of rocks and with no legs? Hell yeah. But I also like to win more than I like to look at lion heads. So, this is what, I don't know if I gave it a number.
I get where you're coming from with that assessment. I really honestly do, X. And chances are you're probably right, because you usually are. But I think this is one of those cards that I want to be very careful not to overlook. I think that initially, like, gut reaction is that this card is probably bad, is fair. But I think that there is enough potential here, especially when you have Life, Steal, Rush, and Wind Fury all in the same card, that there is enough potential here that there's going to be a way to make this a viable card in a viable deck.
You know, it really feels like this card was designed with something in mind, like with an ulterior motive. Like Blizzard is sitting here like, people will be looking at this walking fountain like it's just a worse Alakir. Wait till they see it. And then you got Chalky over there in the side corner just waiting, looking at the Vicious Syndicate tier list, waiting for his beautiful creation, his walking fountain shaman to pop up. You know?
Yeah.
But no, I don't believe in it.
That's fair. What do you give it?
It's got to be a 3. It's not even playable.
I give it a 4.5. I give it a 4.5. It's going to see experimentation because its text makes it strong enough. People are going to want to make it work. There's going to be decks where it works enough right now, even if it doesn't have all the pieces it needs. I think this card is going to see play in a lot more decks than we initially want to give it credit for. So I'm actually gambling. I'm gambling on erring on the side of caution rather than I should say, I'm gambling against erring on the side of caution, and I'm giving it probably a little more credit than I should. And you know what? Chalk this one down too is when you can come back and throw in my face when I'm wrong. But I would rather guess on this one being better rather than worse. That's just my instinct on this one. Okay, so this next one is another scheme. It's the Shaman scheme. It's the 5 mana spell Hagatha scheme, and its text reads: deal 1 damage to all minions, upgrades each turn. I would argue that this might possibly be the best scheme in the set.
Why? There's no way you should argue that, because if someone who you're talking to is making an opposing argument, why are you talking to them?
Fair. But for me, this card is, it's terrible on the first turn that you have it in your hand. But even at the second turn, it's a slightly worse Holy Nova. And because Shaman naturally gets spell power 25% of the time, it's generally speaking going to be, even at the first turn you have it, 50% of the time, 70% of the time, 60%, 25 or 50% of the time, it's going to be a 2 already. And if you get it, let me ask you this. What do you think this card has to be, the damage has to be on this card to justify playing it?
Probably 3. Honestly, 3.
Okay, so I was going to say the same thing. At a 2, it's a worse Holy Nova. At a 3, it's okay. Yeah. Right?
Exactly.
Here's the thing, though. 25 to 40% of the time, you're going to have a spell power totem up anyway. So 25 to 40% of the time, you're able to play this on the second turn you have it in your hand. And of all the schemes, that's probably the fastest you're going to be able to play any of them. If you top deck them, you can know that, generally speaking, I'm going to be able to play this within 2 to 3 turns consistently. Most schemes, you're not going to have that with. And that alone, to me, makes it by far the best scheme, despite the fact that it just does damage across the board. Because if you have this in your hand for 4 or 5 turns, it's a full board clear for 5 mana, which is effing bonkers.
Yeah. It's so Hellfire costs 4 mana.
Yep.
So honestly, the sweet spot really is 4 because F4. Oh please.
You're good.
Sorry,
You're good. You're good.
So F4. F4. It deals with all of the 3 mana cost minions and a lot of the 4 mana cost minions, because that's where you really start to see the bump from really what I like to think of as the early game minions, like the being up to a 4/4, and then jumping forward to where Hagatha's Scheme shouldn't help you, right? It'll be a full board clear on turn 12, sure, but on average, it's gonna make a board full of mid-range minions disappear. I like this card. I like this card a lot, mostly because I'm going to be able to see it off of Hagatha. I don't think I'm ever going to run one in my deck naturally, but when you get off Hagatha, it's going to be absolutely insane. I think that this is going to be the 31st card in a lot of Shaman decks.
Nice. Well, good way to put that. Good way to put that. So what's the ideal damage for this? 4, probably? If you're getting 4 damage with this,
Ideally, I would say 4. You're willing to play it at 2. At 3, you're going to kind of grit your teeth while you play it because you need to. But then at 4, you're balling, dude.
Is there a scenario in which you could see this card being intentionally run, even as a one-of?
Yes, absolutely. So there was Viper, he came out with a deck for the HT Winter Championship known as Peanut Shaman. It got its name because, I don't remember the story exactly, but essentially he was talking about with somebody, said, this deck is the nuts, right? And so misheard became this deck is peanuts. Who's peanut? It's Peanut Shaman. So in a control style dragon or a Peanut Shaman, it fits as a one of. But again, like I said, most of the time it's 31st card.
Yeah. I think you summed it up nicely. I think the only time I can see this card being like intentionally run is if, interestingly enough, Murloc Shaman is just taking over the world. Yeah, because it's just going to be something that's going to be, because I mean, what's the way that they're going to clear a board now? Like Lightning Storm, because Volcano's going away, right? So Lightning Storm isn't going to be good enough to clear Shaman or Murloc Shamans consistently enough, because they're going to run the Oracle that buffs their the Seer, that buffs their health up, right? So a lot of them are going to have 3 or 4 health. You're going to need something consistent to clear with. Something like Hagatha's Scheme is going to be the answer to that. Or like if Treant's Druid is a thing, like this card will see a lot more like intentional play. And people are just going to experiment with it in general. But I think overall, I agree with your assessment that this is going to be something that's going to see most of its play when it's discovered. And when you discover it, you're going to be like, yeah, this is okay. And when you get this randomly, you're going to be like, yeah, this is okay. But you're not going to, generally speaking, you're not going to want to put it in most decks. So what do you give it as schemes go?
As far as schemes go, amazing. As far as cards go, decent. I'd give it a 6.5. This fits in a nice little place where, like I said, the 31st card, the 6th man, the 6th man comes off the bench sometimes. So I
gave it a 5. So I'm right behind you. Not quite as optimistic, but right behind you.
Yeah. I just think it's just like all the other Shaman cards, nearly good enough. Just like this Shaman card, nearly good enough. It's a 2 mana card known as Witch's Brew, and it reads Restore 4 health, repeatable this turn. Could you go ahead and explain to us exactly why it doesn't say Echo?
The argument or the reason that they gave why it didn't say Echo was they didn't want to confuse new players with a term that is going to be cycled out pretty much after this year. So when you see this in a year from now, that you're not wondering what Echo means, but it essentially is the same thing as Echo. It was really kind of convoluted, the reasoning.
So when you scroll over the card to see what the mechanics are, and it says Echo on the right-hand side next to the card, and underneath where it says Echo, it has a description where it says, after you cast a spell, put a copy of the spell in your hand. Remove it at the end of the turn. That's too convoluted. Thanks. I was just saying nice things about you, XR. Where are you at?
It was a really convoluted. Anybody that watched them talk about that on the stream, where they were asked that exact question. I want to say Kibler, or it was either Kibler or Trump. One of them asked the question, and I just happened to catch it when they asked it. And I was like, that is a stupid answer. But yeah, it's essentially Echo. What are your thoughts on the card, though? Besides the shenanigans about why they didn't just put Echo on there, what are your thoughts on the card?
Okay, so my other relevant thoughts on the card are, what's in the stew? Is that like...
I see some eyes of newt, some tentacles, a fish head, some seaweed.
Is this
an apple?
This is it. This is the clue. As we've been waiting for this the whole time. This is how we activate the cauldron in the Witchwood battlefield.
Oh my god!
No. So I jest. This card is only decent if we're playing with decks that need to have a mid range. It's good in a mid range deck. It's not good in a control deck. It's not good in an aggro deck, because what it's there for is it's there to heal your own minions. Mm-hmm. I'm just gonna say exactly precisely like that. If you're not healing your own minions with it, then it's bad. If you're healing your face, if you're healing for 20, you probably lost the game anyway because you just spent 10 mana doing nothing. Yep. Healing is bad unless you're healing minions.
Yep. This is a control card to give your minions extra viability on the board, extra life on the board. It's a control shaman card. It's probably going to see play in some sort of Shutterwalk version 2.0, stall the game out kind of, BS deck. But generally speaking, outside of those scenarios, you're not going to see it in mid-range. You're not going to see it in aggro.
The main reason it's bad is because you could be playing a good card instead. I think people make this mistake of where it's like it heals. Like they look at healing rate. Oh, but it heals you. You're not going to die next turn. No, you won't. But instead you can play a good card and not even be in danger of dying. It takes up a slot in your deck. You are actively making your deck worse when you add this card to it. However, when you get it from Hagatha, when you get it from
Bonkers.
Oh my god, Witch's Cauldron.
Bonkers.
When Paladin gets it from Witch's Cauldron, when it's discovered, it's freaking nuts. But I'm never run this in a deck.
No, I agree. The only deck you're running this in is like what? Control Shaman and Malagos Shaman, maybe. And even then it's like,
I need to roll out the chalkboard that I brought. Oh wait, no, I don't. This many.
He gives it a 4? Really? That's actually higher than I thought you would have given it. Originally I had this lower. I'm actually upgrading it to a 4 as well. I originally had it as a 3. And the reason why is when I was assessing this card, I actually was only thinking about it from what I thought was going to be one of the more non-aggro shaman, one of the more common decks, or one of the. Let me start the sentence over. So I was thinking there was going to be like 3 viable shaman decks. Some sort of aggro, probably Murloc. Some sort of mid-range, probably Elemental. And some sort of control, probably spell-based. I didn't think this would make it into the first 2 options, and I didn't think it would be more than a 1 of in the third option. But having sat here and thought about it a little bit, I think it's going to probably be just a little more popular because people are going to get real greedy with Shaman because there's so much healing. So this is going to enable people to be really greedy with Shaman. So I think they're going to experiment with it in super greedy decks that rely on healing to allow them to be greedy AF. So I'm going to make it a 4. I'm going to change my assessment to a 4. I'm not saying it's good. I'm saying what people are going to do with it.
Yeah, no, I was going to say, but then those people who are trying to do those things are going to play against Hunter for the first week, and then they're going to give up on Shaman entirely and be like, well, Shaman, once again, is almost good enough. And by those people, I mean these people. Me.
All right, we're almost done with Shaman. Next we have what I think is probably a potentially very powerful legendary card.
I am 100% on board with you. This card is so who knows what the heck it will be.
Exactly. So it's a 4-mana 4/4 Murloc. It's a legendary shaman minion called Scargill. Cool name, by the way. And it says your Murlocs cost 1 less. This is one of those things where I look at it. It's a 4-mana 4/4. It's fine. Whatever.
Yes. It does not say 1 less. It says cost 1.
I'm sorry. Cost 1. I apologize. Excuse me.
Yeah, no, that's...
I apologize. This card, if it lives more than a turn, breaks the game. You just win, probably, right? If you have a full hand of Murlocs, right? It's bonkers if you have a full hand, but you're playing Murloc Shaman. How often do you have a full hand to get value out of this? Like, what's the ideal scenario to play this in? You play this on turn 6 and play 2 extra Murlocs for free? I mean...
Well, so in my mind, the way I'm going to play this card is I'm going to play that 2/3, and then we'll play this card on turn 10, and then drop 4 Murlocs and draw 4 cards. So that's the ideal scenario.
But then requires you to still not have won the game on turn 10 as Murloc Shaman.
Yep, exactly.
I know you're being sarcastic, but I want to emphasize that with my facial expressions for people that don't realize that if you're playing Murloc Shaman and it's turn 10, you've probably lost the game.
Thank you. I guess my sarcasm was a little drier than that. I was exactly.
This card is one of those cards that if you have a full hand is bonkers. But the chances of you having that scenario as Murloc Shaman...
A full hand of Murlocs.
Correct. But the chances of you having that is very slim. So it's going to be one of those things where 30% of the time, this card is insane. 70% of the time, you're playing this as a 4-mana 4/4 that's also a Murloc that dies immediately because it's ridiculous, and then you hope that the remaining Murlocs that your opponent wasn't able to kill because they spent all the resources killing this one are enough to win the game before turn 6, because then you lose because you have no cards left in your hand.
This card is so interesting to me because it's the opposite of what you normally see. You normally see a card that it's like you don't just lose your train of thought in the middle of a sentence. With this card, you're playing it for tempo instead of waiting to play it for value, and you're hoping to get value instead of playing for value and then hoping to gain momentum off of the value.
Right.
So it's really backwards from anything we've seen before, which is why all the question marks. Normally, when you have a card, let's compare this to, I don't know, Lyra Works, Radiant Elemental, however you want to call it, like any of these powerful cards that reduce costs, like you normally want to wait until you have your combo pieces, but if you do that, you're going to wait until turn 10.
Right.
We already discussed.
Right. I
don't know. You're just jamming a 4/4 and 4 in an aggro deck, which is still bad. So I don't like the card. I have to give it a poor rating personally, like honestly. Or if I'm to be so bold and just throw the number out now because
do it, because I was about ready to rate it.
Yep. Okay, good. Perfect. I got to give it a 6 because it's going to be somewhere. I want to play it. I'm going to jam it on the board, and I'm going to realize it's suboptimal, and then I'm going to dust it. So
7.5.
Ooh.
And I only say that because of how much play it's going to see, because I'm telling you right now, Murloc Shaman is going to be everywhere for the first 4 weeks of the meta. It's just going to be everywhere. People are going to be like, oh, it's aggro. Ooh, it's a new meta. Aggro is always good in new meta. I'm going to make this one because I only have to make one expensive card in Scargill and everything else is cheap, and they're going to try to make it work. And that's why you're going to see a ton of it. So because you're going to see a ton of it, and it's kind of a good card when it works, it's a 7.5. It's a 7.5. And then in like a month before the new meta start, or the next expansion starts, and the meta starts to like change because of it.
Back.
Yeah, exactly. So you see what I'm saying. It's going to be one of those cards that's going to be an annoyance. It's going to be around. It's never going to be by itself a broken card, but it's going to enable 1 out of 4 games a really broken thing to happen. So yeah, 7.5.
Just like all Shaman cards, it's almost good.
Pretty much. Except for this next one.
Ooh.
This card
is amazing.
Be my favorite card that we've talked about in the set so far.
This might be the most interesting card that's been released in at least since Witchwood.
I think you're right. I think this is up there with like not as broken as Shudderwalk, but as interesting as Shudderwalk, I think. And this is Swamp Queen Hagatha. Is a 7-mana 5/5 Shaman legendary minion that has the battle cry, add a 5/5 horror, which is just, I believe, just an elemental. I'm not sure if it's an elemental or not. It's just a 5/5 minion to your hand. And it says teach it 2 shaman spells. Now, to be clear, the 2 shaman spells you get, one is targeted and you get to pick the target, and the other one is not targeted. So it would be like a lightning bolt and like a healing rain or something like that. I don't know. Do you want to go first on this, or do you want me to go first? Because this is a card we can have some interesting conversations on. I was really excited about this card when we first talked about it a couple weeks ago on the VODcast here. I love this card. I love this card because of its design. I think it is a brilliantly designed card, and there's some subtle things that make it brilliant. Okay, 7 mana, 5/5, terrible stat line. The fact that it adds a card to your hand, that's great. We all like card draw. Card generation is very powerful in a game like this. Cool. The interesting thing is that it teaches you 2 shaman spells that you get to discover. You guys know I love my discover mechanic, but what I think makes this card, the difference between making this card okay and makes this card versus making this card great, is the fact that you get to discover 2. Because discovering any one spell, as we've seen with things like Rune Spear, can be kind of bad. But discovering 2, you're almost guaranteed that one of them is going to be good. And because of that, it's going to make the card much, much more consistent. Overall, I think this card is very well designed. It is like a more reasonable version of UI, right? And I really like the card design here a lot. I like the fact that it gives you a little card generation. I like the fact that it will reward good decision making in allowing you to make decisions about the discovered spells, and the fact that it just is it can have the potential to be a decent swing card without feeling oppressive.
So you hit on all of the best parts about this card, except for Shudderwalk. You can play with Shudderwalk, and that makes me happy. I can play Shudderwalk and Swamp King Hagatha.
That's true.
Azrael, I'm going to play Shudderwalk.
I'm going to be honest with you, since they made the changes to Shudderwalk, I'm fine with Shudderwalk. Like, it doesn't...
Oh, damn it. I can't even troll you with Shudderwalk anymore.
It doesn't bother me anymore.
What fun is this podcast?
It doesn't even bother me anymore. I think Shudderwalk is now what it should have been when it was released. So yeah, that just makes it even more powerful. I just think this is a very, very cool design, a very, very strong card, but not a broken card.
Yeah, I don't think ever this card will be accused of being broken. I can't even imagine a way to break it with cards that don't exist. So that's one of the benchmarks that we talked about when we were on the podcast not too long ago when we were talking about Geppetto Buzzkill. And that's, if it's good, then it's broken, and if it's not, it's unplayable. And that's the exact opposite of what a good card design is. This one is never going to be broken, and it's never going to be unplayable, because there's always going to be a deck that wants to have another card to generate a card. And this works very well with, what's the other Hagatha? The Hagatha of the Swamp. The hero card Hagatha.
Yeah.
The Swamp Queen.
Yeah, because that's just Hagatha, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
But I didn't want to say Swamp Queen Hagatha works with Hagatha. That felt weird to say.
That's really what it is, because it's her twice. It's weird.
Yeah, so she works with herself just like we all do it. She works with herself. She works with herself.
She has good self synergy. Yes, indeed.
I'm gonna stop before I. Yeah, this is gonna get off color very quick. Yeah. So but for real, it's a good card, and the interesting thing is the teach mechanic. That's what I really wanted to hit on. It's like, I've never seen this before in any card game.
Yeah,
it's just really cool. Appending cards to other cards feels fun to me.
I agree. And here's a question. So aside from the hyper aggressive Murloc Shaman decks, is there a Shaman deck that this doesn't fit into?
Yes, I wouldn't normally put this in a mid-range Elemental Shaman, specifically because it's a 7 mana 5/5, and in Elemental-based decks, 7-8 mana is where you top out, and this does not want to be the top of your curve. So
enough.
any deck where this would be the top of the curve, it's in the wrong deck.
Okay. So the 5/5 horror is a 5 cost minion. So it's a 5 mana 5/5 generic beast that allows you to cast potentially what? Maybe what do you think? An average of 8 mana worth of spells?
I'd say that's fair.
Yeah. So you're looking at what, 13 mana to get something like 15 mana worth of stat. No, more than that, because you got the 5/5 attached to it as well, right? Because you have 5/5 for 5, which is worth roughly 5 mana, and you got 8 mana worth of spells. That's 13. You get 20 worth of mana for 13 mana or 12 mana. That's a pretty good deal. And you have the ability to fire it. Off when you want, in the circumstances that you want.
Fair enough. I don't know how often I'm going to be planning too far ahead with this, unless I'm very certain about what my opponent's path to victory is. Right. Like maybe if I just got done playing Madame Lazul and I know what's in his hand, then I'll drop Swamp Queen Hagatha. In fact, I could play him in the same turn. Oh wait,
yeah.
Well, just another shaman card that's almost good enough.
What I'm
saying.
Do you have anything else you want to say about this before we move on? Because it's a really cool card, but
it's so cool and so almost good. It's so 7 out of 10.
Really? You say it's a 7 out of 10? I have this. What do I have this at? I have this at 8.5.
I've been burned too many times before by Shaman. I've been burned too many times before as.
I have it as an 8.5 because I actually think it's it's going to be, because of the fact that you discover 2 spells. I think it's going to be consistent enough that you're always going to get value out of it. Sometimes it's going to win you the game. Sometimes it's going to be meh, but almost never is it going to be like, this sucks, because you get those 2 spells.
The fact that it takes 2 turns to do it, and at one of the turns I'm just playing a 7 mana 5/5, I'm not a believer. That's just way too much. That, like, the amount of time you're taking is just fair. Is way too much to pay.
Absolutely fair concern. So what was your vote again?
I think I said 7.
That sounds right. Yep, that sounds right. I know we were close.
Yeah.
I knew we were close. Yeah, I think that's fair. I think that's fair because of the fact that it is really slow, and a lot of times you're playing it. See, I look at this as playing it when you're slightly ahead on board, or even on board, or you have a way to come back. Like you have Lightning Storm in your hand or something like that, so you could afford it, and then you use this to set up the swing or the finishing blow. That's my vision for this card, right? So you play it when you have a slight board advantage or you have a way to come back, knowing that when you play it, you're going to lose that and you have to catch back up, but then you're going to get something that potentially pushes you to your win condition. That's how I envision it. And because of that, I don't see it being played in anything other than either, the kind of decks that I like to play, the greedy mid-range decks or the control decks. It's not going to see any play in anything that relies on tempo, because this card is anti-tempo. So
correct.
Yeah. So yeah, I think we've said all we need to say on that. Are we ready to move on? Well, let's.
What's the current state of Shaman?
What's that? Yep. Briefly discuss.
This is the last one, right?
Yep. This is it.
So did you want to kick us off with the current state of Shaman, or
Sure. Shaman, as it is right now, interestingly enough, wasn't a pretty good spot when Even Shaman was a thing, and then they decided to nerf Even Shaman 6 weeks early instead of just waiting for the rotation to nerf it. I don't know why they did that, because Shaman all but disappeared from the meta when they could have just done it at the rotation with everything else. That felt really wonky to me. Once they did that, Shaman all but disappeared. Even Shutterwalk Shaman, midrange Shutterwalk Shaman, or Temple, whatever you want to call that version of it, was almost not seen at all. There was some attempt to bring back midrange or Even Shaman. The Box Wine had a version of midrange or of Even Shaman that he ran that actually won my tournament. But with the exception of a few examples like that, Shaman has all but disappeared from the meta. And I think that regardless of what form it takes, what we're seeing in Shaman, the Shaman cards right now, with the losing of the things that we're losing, you're going to see Shaman again. Even if they have to force it down our throats by making Murloc Shaman so easy to play, that everybody's going to do it. Shaman at least will have a place in the meta. How good that is remains to be seen, because I think Murloc Shaman will be present because it'll be cheap and easy to make and fast games. but I don't know how viable it's going to be. Like I see that floating at every level plateau from like, it'll be like rank 5 and 4. It'll be at like, 10, 9, 8, but it won't get much higher than that. And so I don't know how good it's going to be, but you're going to see a lot of it. As far as the things that like Swamp Queen Hagatha implies, which is like these control your shaman decks, I'd have to play with them a lot more to see the potential in them. But I do like the idea of a spell-based shaman, or a control spell shaman, or a spell damage shaman. But again, I'm gonna have to play around with some decks to see if it'll actually work. What are your thoughts?
I've been burned so many times before.
You've said that so many times.
I've said this so many times before, but I've been burned so many times before, and this time I was burned before I even tried playing Shaman, because these cards are not good enough to make any new and interesting strategy. Murloc Shaman, great. It's great. It's cool. Murgle. Let's love ourselves, love each other, but like, it's not interesting. It's like Murloc Shaman isn't interesting because you have another way to make minions. Just like Murloc Paladin isn't really interesting because you have another way to make minions and just your hero power. So it's not like with Mage where you need to really balance out how you're using your other resources, because your hand's going to be full of bad cards, because Murlocs are bad in a vacuum. They're only good when you put all these bad cards together. And so when you are removing another one of your tools, your hero power, it adds a little bit of difficulty and thoughtfulness, because the Mage hero power is one of the strongest in the game, being 1 damage wherever in the world you want it. Yep. So for that reason, that's why I love Murloc Mage. It's just it adds an interesting dynamic, where if you just have 2 extra mana and no Murloc to play, get yourself a Taunt Totem and have another 10 damage to go face. It doesn't and that's the only thing that I see cropping up from these newer cards. I think that Elemental Shaman is still going to be a thing. It didn't get any real support here.
Agree.
It's something that I've played on the ladder recently. To some success. Like, I think I'm 5-2 with it this season. I haven't, not gonna lie, I haven't been playing much. I've been visiting my wife and driving her around to different bases for a week. So it is what it is. And yeah, so I'm sad. I'm sad. Shaman makes me sad.
I think the interesting takeaway here is that you kind of alluded to this, but I just want to like state it like overtly and concisely. As much as I think Murloc Shaman is going to be a thing, just because they're kind of forcing it and they're giving it the tools to at least be a deck, whether or not it's good or not doesn't matter. It's going to be a deck. The fact remains that other classes do Murlocs better. Mage will do Murlocs better, and Warlock will do Murlocs better. And
absolutely,
that's just the way of it. And so that makes Shaman feel even worse, because the thing that they're clearly being intended to do, 2 other classes are going to do it better. And those 2 other classes have 1,000,005 other ways to be played, which is going to make Shaman feel even more sad. Moving on to one of those classes, possibly one of the most interesting classes coming up. Would you agree, X?
I've always been a fan. I've always been a fan of Warlock. You hear how fast I started speaking as soon as I started to come out. I tripped over my words.
Yes, you did.
But yeah.
Well, let's start out with a powerhouse card for Warlock.
God. Please let me take this one.
One of the best cards.
First 10 out of 10 I'm going to give. Spoiler alert. So, Rafam's Scheme is a 3-mana Warlock card, and it reads, summon 1/1 imp. Upgrades each turn. And I know what you're thinking. How could this be good? And you're racking your brain right now. You're like, does upgrade each turn mean summons 2/2/2, then summons 3/3/3? Because then it might be a good card, because you're holding a 3-mana card in your hand for 5 turns to make 5 5/5s. Okay, that might be a decent card, because you held it for 5 turns, so you paid your price. No, chat. That's not at all how it works. You're literally just putting more 1/1s on the board. So the maximum potential for this card is to have it in your hand for 7 turns and to play 7 1/1s, which makes it a worse Hyreek. Because not only do you have to have it in your hand, but you have to have it in your deck. Hyreek you can leave in your collection. So I don't know. How do you feel, Az?
I think unless in one of the following expansions during the Year of the Dragon comes out to show how this card is secretly been like waiting to unleash its true power. And I doubt very highly that that's going to be a thing. It's plain and simple that this card is what they call filler. Yeah. At 2 mana, this would be a viable card. At 3 mana,
maybe. At 2 mana, maybe I would play it.
At 2 mana, if you got like 4 minions off of it, it would be okay. Okay, I think that's fair, right? But you still have to hold on to it for 4 turns. But
that's it right there.
At 3 mana, it's unplayable. At 3 mana to summon 7 imps, I think it's still unplayable. Sorry, on turn 7, I don't want to summon 7 1/1s ever. I don't want to fill my board with 1/1s. And chances are I've already got shit on the board anyway, so I'm only going to summon like 3 1/1s anyway. The card's bad. For me, it's a 1 out of 10. I think it's my first 1 out of 10 I've given. I don't want to say anything else about it. You can say your piece. I want to move on. I'm almost mad that they printed this card.
I just have so many things that I could say about this card just to troll people with it. I think one. I'm just going with 1 and just stop. Oh man. I'm going to make this work I'm going to give you a deck with this card in it, and I'm going to make you mad by making this card work.
And when you do, I will gladly eat my own words. Until then, I'm going to ride high and mighty in the fact that that's not going to happen. Now, here's a much better, just by the fact that it's not the other card. This is a much better 3 mana Warlock spell. It's called Inferno, 10 out of 10 for the name, by the way. And it reads, give your demons +1 attack, deal 1 damage to all enemy minions. This is not a scheme. It does not upgrade. So it's just +1 to your demons and deal 1 damage to all enemies. However, the damage is affected by spell power. Not that it's going to matter a whole bunch. What are your thoughts on this card? I mean, clearly it lends itself to some sort of demon zoo, but I mean, let's go a little deeper than the superficial here.
I think it's interesting that you said it's not a scheme, because that's the first thing that comes to mind when you read that effect. It seems very schemey, like it should upgrade, because the effect isn't powerful enough just to be on a 3 mana card because of the restriction that says give your demons.
Correct.
So we have to look at it as if it were written backwards to fairly evaluate it. Yep. So this is effectually deal 1 damage to all enemy minions, and then secondarily give your demons +1 attack.
Yeah. Sometimes gain a secondary effect.
Exactly. So now put in this context, it seems a lot worse. I'm not going to pay 3 mana to deal 1 damage as a warlock to all the enemies. And best case scenario is that you just played Rafam's scheme for 7 last turn, and now you're playing Inferno. The biggest problem with this, I think I kind of overtly said it last card, is you have to play this card in your deck. Why? Why are you doing this to yourself? Why are you doing this to the Warlock class? Please stop it.
X. What deck does this make the most sense in? Zoo Demon, right?
Sure.
Yeah. Well, just for the sake of argument, it's
most sense.
Demon,
For the sake of argument, let's go.
Right. There is no way that this card makes the cut over things that you want to play in even that deck. I would much rather play the card that sacrifice one of your own guys, give your guys +1/+1.
Rimmerelli.
Yeah, I would much rather play another card that we're going to talk about. Kill one of your guys and give 2 other minions +2/+2. Any of those, and it's not about the mana cost here. It's about the card slot, because the resource of card space in your deck. This is not consistent enough and doesn't do enough to justify the spot that it's going to take up in your deck. It's another. I hate to say it. It's another 1 for me.
So, the only place where this card will ever be useful is in the mirror match, and they play Hyreek, then you play Inferno after you played Rafam's scheme last turn. So now we're talking about the 3 most powerful cards Warlock has. 1 out of 10.
So that's 2 in a row. So it's interesting that the first 2 cards that we rated we agreed are 1 out of 10s. And that's like the first 2 1 out of 10s I've given. But even despite that, we have high hopes for where Warlock is headed. So
true, we can just ignore all this bad crap.
Yeah, fret not. The reason why these 1 out of 10 cards exist is because some of the other cards that they have are pretty bonkers.
Truth. Oh. 4 mana, this 4 mana Fungalmancer, this 4 mana Eager Underling, as it's called, is a 2/2 Warlock minion that reads Death Rattle. Give 2 random friendly minions +2/+2. At first glance, this looks like a worse Fungalmancer. At second glance, you realize you identified it correctly the first time, only you're wondering why you looked at it a second time, because it's bad. Please, can we stop, we're just destroying everything I love about Hearthstone. First, we made Priest good. Then we made Warrior good. Then we even rotated the meta, and Priest and Warrior still have the highest hopes. And now we're just going to crush Shaman and Warlock. Diatribe. Continue.
So I agree with everything you said. The only saving grace for this card is that it synergizes with sacrifice mechanics.
I agree.
But that still requires a lot of effort. I'd much rather just play that proactive battle cry on the Fungalmancer, play 1 more mana, and just hit him in the face now for +4 damage. But Fungalmancer's rotating. They realized Fungalmancer was kind of a broken card. So this is their ability, their attempt to still have viable Warlock Zoo decks without having as oppressive of a card that, and I shouldn't really call Fungalmancer oppressive, but it was definitely ubiquitous and it was very, very strong. So this is definitely the reverse power creep on the Fungalmancer, but is also designed to have that backdoor enabling of the sacrifice mechanics. However, don't fall for the trap. There are much better ways to buff your minions and to get momentum in a zoo deck. You don't need to do stuff like this because that's a heavy price. You're going to pay 4 mana to do nothing on a turn, then the next turn to deal 4. I'd rather just play something with 4 attack on it.
Mm-hmm.
Am I wrong? You're
not at all wrong.
I would rather play for the same 4 mana slot Spellbreaker.
I would rather play Druid.
Well, yeah, I wouldn't feel like that, but
seriously,
Is there any scenario other than sacrifice where this card is viable?
Yeah. So, oh man, it was just in my head. Oh, okay. No, there's not actually. The thing I wanted to say was, you said it works with a sacrifice mechanic, and maybe if you have a large board to enable these, yeah, and you have these large boards, etc. You know what I would rather play? It's actually a 3 mana card. It's called Mad Hatter, and it's a better stat line as well. It's a 3 mana 3/2, give 3 random minions +1/+1.
Right.
It's just better in literally every single way, and it's a neutral.
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah, and there's a reason why these 3 cards are first, guys, because I promise you, there's some interesting Warlock cards coming up. We just had to get these ones out of the way. Do you have anything else to say about this card?
3 is what I have to say.
I'm going to say a 4. Because people are going to see this and they're going to go Fungalmancer and they're going to go, oh, it synergizes with the sacrifice mechanic. So therefore, you're going to see this thrown into the same way that people put Arena Fanatic in their decks, right? Mm-hmm. It's going to get play. It shouldn't, but it's gonna work just enough to where people are going to be like, look, it works. I've got a 49% win rate and I'm slowly climbing to rank 11 with it or whatever. The point is that it's going to get enough play, but it shouldn't. 4. Now we're starting to get into some of the more interesting cards. You want to handle this one?
Sure, I'll handle all of the good Warlock cards if you want it. So this one is like some sort of weirdo insectoid swamp queen thing. There's a 2 mana 2/2 Warlock card named Evil Genius. It reads Battle Cry. Destroy a friendly minion to add 2 random lackeys to your hand. So
you mean, wait a second, destroy a random minion? That means it synergizes with this guy.
Oh, I've never thought of that.
Oh my god. All right, go on.
Sorry, dude. No. Oh, what the heck does this? This is a good card. So what you do with this card is you're taking whatever garbage you have on the board, no matter what sort of deck that you're playing, you trade it in, make a value trade, or even just a bump. But then you get rid of that garbage, and then you finish it off with a lackey that deals 2 damage, whatever minion you just bumped into, and you're chilling. I think this is a good. I don't want to use that word. I think this is a fine card. I think that this is one that you're going to look over in your collection every single time you're trying to make a new Warlock deck, and you're like, I want to play Evil Genius. Put 2 copies of that in, start filling out the deck, you start making cuts, and then Evil Genius gets cut, and then you're going to have 30 cards, and you're going to realize you just made a zoo deck, and you're going to say, fucking go play Druid.
I'm not quite that cynical on this card, but I'm close. I think the card is a good card. I would go slightly better than fine, because 2 lackeys is good. I think getting 2 lackeys is pretty strong. And the fact that there is enough ways without playing Rafam's scheme to get sacrificable tokens, that you're going to be able to get this card off fairly consistently, where you're not really paying too high of a price, and you're going to get that added bonus of the power of those lackeys. The 2-mana 2/2 stat line is bleh. In a zoo deck, it's kind of whatever. I'm not really. I don't really care about its stat line. I'm playing this card for its effect. The problem is you're not going to play this in a zoo deck. People are going to play. I should say people are going to play this in the zoo deck because they're going to be like, oh, it's a 2/2, so it's a curve minion. But it's a 2-mana card, so it's a curve minion, and it's going to give me 2 more minions that I can play, and I just want to swarm stuff on the deck or on the board. So they're going to try to make it work in that. I think it's more of a mid-range card. I think that's where it fits better. I think it's an okay card. You're going to see it's going to see play in decks where it shouldn't, like zoo decks. But that doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad card just because people are playing it in a way that probably isn't best for it. But I like the card overall. I give it a 5 out of 10.
Because of its usefulness in handlock style decks, I got to go with the 6. I see some potential upside. I'm not high on it. It's a fine card. It's not a right. I rated it higher than you, and you called it good. But
the biggest argument I have against, and I'm not going to argue, I don't mean to like challenge you when it comes to your knowledge of especially like Warlock, because you play a lot of Warlock. But my biggest thought is you're going to want to play other things in the 2 slot in a Warlock deck. You're going to want to play. My thought is you're going to want to play, the Doomsayers and the Oozes and the Sun Fury Protectors. Those are the things that are going to take the 2 slot. That's my biggest concern. There's not going to be room, like you were talking about, when you're making cuts. These guys are going to get cut. That's why I think it feels better in decks that you don't want those cards in.
Potentially. I'm not exactly certain. I haven't played with the lackeys. We know how we think we evaluate the lackeys, but it really depends on that.
Well, we know their value, right? Like we can pretty objectively, without playing them, assess their value. The question is how do those get? How does that value equate to actual play in game? That we don't know.
Good point.
Yeah, that we don't know.
Yeah, if a lackey deck was to be made, it would be made with Warlock, and this would be a linchpin. But since it's not going to be made, and because the lackey mechanic is just something that's neat for now, fringe handlock card is going to be fringe card. It'll see some play. Not great.
It's going to be a fringe / tech handlock card, and it's going to get experimented with in mid range, and it's going to get jammed into zoo decks because people don't understand it.
So the next card we're going to go over is named okay, as you did this to me because I'm reading Goodly. Aranasi, quote the grammar Nazi, by the way. Aranasi Broodmother.
Kill me, bro.
Aranasi Broodmother. Yeah. It's a 6-mana 4/6 taunt that reads: when you draw this, restore 4 health to your hero. It does have the demon tag. So if you wanted to play not Implosion, Inferno. If you want to play Inferno,
right,
in the same turn that you played this, you can now make it a 5/6 for a mere 9 mana. So no, like for real, this card isn't miserable. This card slots itself like just naturally into any deck that wants to play Lord Godfrey. You play this card, they trade into it. They now have a board that's Godfreyable. You play Godfrey and you win the game. So like Godfrey is that powerful card in my opinion. Like
100%. Yes.
once he goes off, like if he's the only thing on the board, you probably
win.
just won if you're a control lock.
On turn 7, yeah. If you cleared the board on turn 7 and have a 4/4 left over, yeah. Oh, usually. If you don't win that turn, then, you set up to win in a turn or two.
Exactly. And then from there, moving forward, you're hitting these value cards. One is the legendaries we're going to go into in a moment, and also a card that often gets overlooked. The Omega Defender. Or not Defender, the Omega...
Agent.
Yeah, the Omega Agent. Which is 4 mana,
4 or 5.
Yep, 4 mana, 4/5. If you have 10 mana crystals, summon 3 copies. Or summon 3 of this minion. Yeah, 2 copies of this minion. So because it curves naturally into that, and it, like, you can already start to see a win condition that involves this being a piece of it, because this is how you're going to be able to transition to, we were talking about the early mid-game minions, the ones that have 4 health, and then moving forward. This card becomes really, really strong. I think it's going to be an underrated card. People are going to look at it and scream arena at it because a 6 mana 4/6 is pretty unimpressive. But for the reasons I mentioned, I actually like this card a lot.
I agree. I like this card a lot. Its cost seems wonky, but I think the flexibility and the versatility of this card, and the fact that it's kind of cool that when you draw the card, you gain 4 health. I mean, that means your opponent's always going to know that you just drew this card. But I like a 4/6 taunt that doesn't have a huge penalty with it in Warlock, because most of the Warlock cards usually with that kind of effect have a penalty. I guess the penalty is the higher than normal mana cost, but you get that nice healing effect, and that feels real nice in a mid-range or even an aggressive Warlock where you just want to tap, and then you can put this down to protect your board, right? I mean, this can literally fit. It's not ideal in an aggressive Warlock, don't get me wrong, but it can fit in an aggressive Warlock, and it can fit, like you talked about, in some other in all of the Warlock archetypes. I just think overall it's a really solid card design. It's not going to see play in every deck because of its cost and because of its wonky stat line, but it's going to get experimented with in a lot of decks, and it will find a home in mid-range decks and in demon heavy decks. I like the card a lot. I'm intrigued by it because it's a cool design. Again, they're trying stuff. We talked about this a little while ago earlier in the show. They're trying combinations of effects that they haven't either done before or they haven't put together before. And we haven't seen a mechanic like this where you draw something and then something happens since Flame Leviathan was the last one we saw like that, or the Storm
the Iron Juggernaut, maybe?
Yeah. The Iron Juggernaut put a bomb in their card, in their deck. There was the Storm. There was like the Storm Warden or something like that. That was the warrior card that dealt 1 damage to your minions when you drew it. And then there was the
mage minion,
the Flame Leviathan that dealt 2 damage to everything when you drew it. But I think the biggest detractor for this card is its 6 mana cost. I think this card would have been fine at 5 mana. There's a reason why it's 6 mana. We might not know what it is.
It would have been great in Even Lock.
Yeah. Nice.
Rest in peace.
Yeah. I'm curious as to why this card is at 5 mana, other than the fact that I can only assume that there's a mechanic or an interaction or a deck type that we're not thinking about yet. Because I think it's a bit overcosted and there's a reason for that. But overall, I think it's a fine card. What do you give it?
Yeah, I got to hit with that 6. It's strong. It's going to be good.
Yep. I'm in the same boat with you. I'm in a 6. 100%. Anything else you want to say about it? Okay. The next card we have is a 6 mana epic Warlock spell called the Darkest Hour. Destroy all friendly minions. For each one, summon a random minion from your deck. This is a super intriguing card.
I agree. I love the design of this card. I love the way it looks. I think it can do so many cool things in tandem with other cards. But however, it can't do them in the same turn as those other cards, no matter what card you imagine it with. Even if you want to imagine it with the scheme, with Rafam's scheme, go for it. Sure, you can do that in the same turn, but then you have to run Rafam's scheme and you have to wait 7 turns for it to be good. So, I want this to be good. It's just, it's not good with Hyreek. It's not good with the scheme. It's not good with Arch with Rafam, which we're going to go into in a bit. Because it summons a minion from your deck and not a copy of the minion is what makes it bad, in my opinion. Like it's intriguing and I want it to be good. And please, 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 somebody prove me wrong. Please, somebody make this good. As it's bad. Next.
Is there a scenario, just real quick, that you could see this card being viable?
I tried. I tried to see it as viable.
The only thing I can think of is, again, a super, like the same argument with the Recruit Warrior that we already discussed can't work, right? When we were discussing the Warrior cards, some sort of like handlock that's trying to like just pull their handlock minions out of their deck instead of just playing them normally, maybe? I don't know. This feels like one of those cards that doesn't have the tools it needs to be good yet.
Exactly.
But it feels
it's not
like
good yet.
It feels like a card that we might look at next expansion, since they're all going to be linked on this year-long storyline. We might look back at next expansion and be like, there we go. Now this card works.
Can we talk about how concerned the demon that is the main focal point of this card art looks? He just looks so concerned. Is there any other word you can put to that emotion?
Constipated?
Maybe. Still concerned though.
You look at this guy over here. Looks like he's all like, I don't know what's going on. Oh, you can't see him, but he's like him right here.
Oh no, he's scared. Like he's scared of the guy.
Yeah, and then this guy over here is like crying. I don't know.
The guy on the left is sitting over there like, I'm so startled right now.
I'm so startled. So, given the fact that this card has very limited, if any, applications at all right now, where are you at with this card?
It's a 3.5. Like it's gonna be something that's nearly good enough to experiment with, but people are gonna realize, nah.
I gave this card a 4.5 when I was evaluating. That's the number I wrote down. As we were sitting here talking about it, I wanted to go lower, but I think I'm going to stick with the 4.5.
Ooh.
Yeah, because it's going to get experimented with. It's just intriguing enough where people are going to try to make it work. I guarantee you, somebody, either one of us or somebody listening to this podcast right now or watching the show right now, somebody's going to run into a Warlock playing Deathwing that's going to try to pull it out of their deck with this card, and they're going to win, and it's going to feel real effing bad. And yeah, it's going to happen. It's going to see some experimentation, and it's probably going to be good in one of the coming up expansions, or at least viable in one of the upcoming expansions. So I'm making that assessment as more of an educated guess, and based on the fact that I think it's going to see a decent amount of experimentation. I gotta say, this next card, you giggled when I flipped to it. I want to giggle every time I think about it. We have a 10 mana 8/8 Warlock demon minion called Jumbo Imp, and it reads, cost 1 less whenever a friendly demon dies while this is in your hand. So it's like the Mulch Muncher, but with demons and no rush.
And also, Mulch Muncher doesn't have to be in your hand.
True. So it's like a bad version of it. But you know what? Hey, you can pull this out of your deck for free with this. Anyway.
Or replace it with Dr. Morgan.
Yeah, exactly. Or with our luck, we'll pull Dr. Morgan out of our deck with this. Anyway. So what do you think about this card? Obviously, a 10 mana 8/8 is blah. A 9 mana 8/8 is almost playable. An 8 mana 8/8 is vanilla, right? No, it's not. Oh, okay.
I'm not playing a vanilla 8/8 until it's like 6 mana.
Right. I agree.
Like
this is
Bittertide Hydra.
Right.
Bittertide Hydra isn't good enough, and that's a 5 mana 8/8.
Right. This is clearly designed and intended to be Warlock's demon handlock like alternative, right? Like they're trying to make handlock work, but for demons, I guess is what I'm seeing here. Or do you play this in a demon deck that also runs mountain giants or sea giants? Maybe I don't. Sea giants maybe, but not mountain giants, right? Like what does this deck fit in other than making your random summon demon effects slightly better?
Hold on, I can come up with something.
I know
I just
you
need
can.
like 3 or 4 more hours because this card is so freaking bad. I can't even come up with a gosh danged way to put it into a Warlock deck. And all I know,
I know when I was setting up the order of this particular list for this review here, I put this one towards the end of the Warlock section just because it was interesting. And it was something new that we hadn't really seen from them yet. So because of that, it intrigued me enough to put it towards the end of the Warlock section. But for the life of me, I can see people throwing this into their demon decks and trying to make it work. Because, somebody's going to pull this thing out of their deck for 4 mana. But 4 mana 8/8s have existed, or 7/7s at least have existed before. And they didn't break the game. And they were a lot easier to get off than this. So I see this being a card that 70% of the time you're going to draw it and it's going to sit in your hand forever because it's 10 mana 8/8 that you don't want to play, or you can't play because it's 10 mana 8/8. 20% of the time you're going to play it on like turn 7, 6, 7, or 8, and it's going to be an okay vanilla minion. And 10% of the time, you're going to get your Rafam scheme slaughtered, and you're going to play this on turn 4, and you're going to feel real good about yourself. And then you're going to lose all the other games, and it's going to, not
you're going to lose that game where you played Rafam scheme
on 3.
because you have a second Rafam scheme in your deck.
Look, you get what I'm saying, all right?
No, I do. I understand.
What do you have to say about this card? Because I'm ready to vote and move on.
2.
That's all he has to say about it. I'm going to give it a 3 just because it's going to see play. People are going to try to make it work. They're going to think it's good and they're going to try to make it work, or they're going to know it's bad and they're going to want to make it work ironically, or just to be the guy that made it work. So I
want to be the guy to make it work. I like Jumbo Imp. A, great name. B, great art. C, it's a Jumbo frickin' Imp.
It's basically the demon version of like Biggie Smalls, right? Like
exactly. Thank you.
So I give it a 3 because people are going to play with it. All right. Now this card is another pretty interesting card. Honestly, you were talking about cards of intrigue as we've been going through this Warlock class. You mentioned a few of them. This is the first one we've come across that I really, really enjoy because it fits into if you're a dreamer, it fits into a million different types of decks, and I happen to be a dreamer. Azrael happens to be a dreamer. This card is Plot Twist. It's a 2-mana Warlock spell that reads, shuffle your hand into your deck, then draw that many cards. At first glance, this may not seem like a very powerful effect, but because you're paying 2 mana and you're netting nothing out of it. Yeah.
You're netting nothing. However, you're getting rid of all of the crappy cards you have in your hand lock deck and putting them somewhere else that you don't want to see them. It's getting your giant out of your deck when you saw 10 cards and for some freaking reason you can't draw a giant after seeing some reason you can't find so it helps you in those cases. Also, if you in a control environment, in a control deck, you're able to throw cards that you want back into your deck, or even better, you're able to draw the cards from what I'm sure is the next card we're going to review that you're going to want to have. And it's just like, I mean, Azrael, we could do another 6-hour stream just on Plot Twist if you wanted to just let me not stop talking.
I was going to let you ramble on for a minute because you're covering most of the things I want to talk about. Here's the thing. Anybody that's watched my streams knows about how bad my RNG can be sometimes. My card draw can be pretty bad. I can play a completely meta list and I'll draw the wrong end of my deck. If I want the low stuff, I'll draw the high stuff. If I want the high stuff, I'll draw the low stuff. People have seen this. It's a meme on my channel, right? Mm-hmm. So I like this card just because of the fact that all of those times where I'm like, well, I'm going to lose the game because it's turn 5 and I still haven't drawn a mountain giant. Well, now I can find that mountain giant like you're talking about. But more interestingly, let's talk about it in even just more standard terms. X, how much does life tap cost?
2.
Oh, that's interesting. So you're saying that for the same cost where I could go, yeah, I'm missing a card that I need, I could just tap to hope to get it, or I could tap six
Seven
times. Yeah,
times.
exactly. And get it. Yeah, the card. If Life Tap is good, is Life Tap good?
But dude, it is actually the best hero power in the
Oh,
game.
interestingly enough.
Not even close.
Oh, wow. Okay. So if Life Tap is good for one card and it costs you life, then just paying the 2 mana and not losing your life and getting 4 to 8 cards is probably also good. Guys, it's this is good. This could be good as a one of even in aggro decks, because there are times where I'm not saying you want to do it, but I can make an argument for playing in an aggro deck, because there are times like, think Keleseth. How many times do you want Keleseth in your hand? Well, you don't get him. Well, now you got a chance to get him. I'm not saying you want to do it, but I'm saying I could make an argument for it.
Sure.
But this card in control decks is going to make Warlock a lot more consistent. And Warlock is already pretty good and pretty consistent. This is going to make it even more good. And
it's about as good as it can get.
And more consistent. I think this card is great. I think the upside for this is very high. And I think the only real downside is that it takes up a card in your deck. But if you're playing something like Handlock anyway, you really only care about 8 cards in your deck as it is. All the rest are just kind of filler. Am I wrong? Maybe 12.
I mean, yeah, absolutely. So because you get to see so many cards, you get to have so many role players, and this is what that in a Handlock deck. This is a role player, and with Handlock, it's always been one of the quote unquote tighter lists, but honestly, it's the most flexible list. Because you can take 5 cards out of Handlock and put 5 off meta cards, and it'll still be a good deck because of how consistently it draws. And Plot Twist increases that consistency. So for control and Handlock, you're absolutely right. This card is an awesome role player in so many different types of decks. As you covered a lot of things that very quickly. You covered a lot of things that I didn't even consider. And I was already thinking about this card as a 7. I don't know if it was enough to put it any further for me, but damn, am I more excited to play this after talking to you now.
In that particular hand/control lock deck, this card is an 8.5 easy for me.
Oh my god.
Yeah, I think it's going to be at least one of, if not 2 of, almost every one of those decks. Just for that level of consistency, that level of ubiquitousness, I think you have to give it that much. I mean, it's like saying, it's like up there with Sun Fury Protector or Mountain Giant. I think it could easily become a staple, at least as a one of, in those particular decks, and that alone makes it. And that's one of the most consistently powerful archetypes for Warlock over the last 5 years is control or Handlock. And you could even make an argument to throw it in some more combo oriented Warlock decks as well, and because of that ups its ranking a little bit too. So I'm very high in this card and its potential, so I stand by my 8.5.
You're right, you are very high, and then I cut off.
And what would you say it was again?
I said it was a 7. This was a 7 for me.
Right. Okay, moving on to
this card is a card that very well synergizes with Plot Twist. This card is named Fellord Beartrug. Beartrug. It's the Fellord B. Mm-hmm. It is a legendary warlock minion with the demon tag. It's 5 attack and 7 health, and it reads, whenever you draw minions, summon a copy with Rush that dies at the end of the turn. So if you wanted to play this crazy Plot Twist card in your deck for whatever reason, there are so many bad Warlock cards, so you select this one. And you also play Fellord Beartrug, and you play him at the same turn, then you win the game.
Yeah, this is why I was saying that you could feasibly fit Plot Twist into a mid-range or aggressive deck. Now, you don't want to play a 8-mana 5/7 in a straight aggressive deck, but you could make an argument in more of a mid-range deck because that rush mechanic is so powerful. And if there is some way to resurrect those demons, to bring them back, then that, maybe not right now, but in the future, that is a bonkers combo, just the same way that Revenge of the Wild is a bonkers combo when it hits for Hunter. So
Yeah.
there's potential synergies in the future, but for in the right now, here and now time, I like this card, but only really in mid-range warlock. That's really the only time what's that?
I like how your tone is your tone is doing the same thing mine did.
Yeah.
You're super excited, lots of cool things, but honestly, it's just not good.
Yeah. Well, because you and I see the potential for these things, and we get excited about the potential, but then our analytical brain kicks in, and we go, it's not there. So, there's gonna be experimentation with this in mid range warlock. There's gonna be a list because warlock's hero power enables it. There's gonna be a list where this works. How well it works remains to be seen, but there will be a list where this works. And because of that, I think it's going to see a modest amount of play, but without a little more, it's not going to be super strong. I give it a 5.5 out of 10.
Yeah, I'm sitting here with it at a 5. I'm surprised you went so low. Because this is a card that's going to trap a lot of people. It's another one of those types of cards because it does have a very powerful effect, and it does have cards that synergize with its powerful effect. However, its powerful effect doesn't matter when you play it because you have better. You know what's better than this plus plot twist to clear the board? Twisting Nether.
Yeah, I know. But
so it's like when you look at it in comparison with what you could play, it always falls short.
100%. Don't disagree with you. But yeah, trap cards trap a lot of people. That's why they call them trap cards. But it doesn't make it any less interesting. And someday it might work. Now to the card you wanted to talk about.
Oh, my favorite. Archvillain Rafaam. It's a 7-mana, 7/8 legendary warlock minion that reads Taunt, Battlecry. Replace your hand and deck with legendary minions. It's clearly a callback to the Golden Monkey, which you used to get from Elise, which is a 5-mana, 5/5, I think, that reads Shuffle the Golden Monkey into your deck, which is a 3/6 taunt? 6/6 taunt. 6/6 taunt that replaces your hand with legendary minions. First, you actually had to play Elise, then the map to the Golden Monkey, then the Golden Monkey.
There was multiple cards. There was Elise.
Is there?
Yeah, there was Elise. Then there were 2 cards. There was the map to the Golden Monkey, and then you shuffled the Golden Monkey into the deck. Then you had to draw the Golden Monkey. Then you had to play the Golden Monkey. So it was like 4 cards to get the effect.
And it was just in your hand. It wasn't your deck, was it?
Yeah.
Oh, it was? Okay.
No, it was the cards in your hand.
Yeah, exactly. So this is like so much more powerful, so much less restrictive. You obviously can't run this in a combo deck, which is the one downfall. You could run Elise in a combo deck. I don't know why you would, but you could have. This card is enabled by Plot Twist very heavily because you drop this boy. You now have a 7/8 taunt, and you can just replace your entire hand with legend. Like, if you don't get the legendary minions you want, just throw them jerks back into the deck. And Actually, you can't do that because once you play this, you can't use Plot Twist.
Right.
But the fact of the matter is, this card is just insane for any.
But Plot Twist helps you get to this faster, though, which is important. I think it's interesting that they noted it replaces your hand and your deck, so that prevents any kind of shenanigans with like bounce back mechanics or Zola shenanigans. You're only going to get 1 fire off this, kids, unless you happen to pull another Archvillain Rafaam as one of your random legendaries.
It is probably going to see play in a lot of the wrong decks, and people are going to underrate it. And then the right deck where it's going to come around, and it's still going to be seen as a meme card. Then one person's going to slot it in there, and then it's going to overtake the meta. So what month is it? Is April? So May, June. Watch out, kids. July 15th, Archvillain Rafaam is going to be breaking the meta, and they're going to nerf him before the release of the set in the beginning of August.
I don't think it's going to take that long. I think this card is not a meme card. I think this card is good now. But
I love it.
Here's my thought about this card, and I think that a lot of people tend to look at this is the same thing that or similar to what I'd said about Zul'jin. I think people tend to look at new powerful cards with a little bit too much of a blunt tool kind of mentality. Like it's a hammer and you just, no, a lot of things are scalpels, right? They look at this and they go, I want to slam this out on turn 7 and just get all these legends. No, you want to play this on like turn like 17 when you've got like 4 cards in your hand and like 3 cards left in your deck, and you're just trying to get that last little oomph to win, or when you're trying to turn the game back around when you're too far, when you've lost or you're going to lose the game. This is a card that allows you opportunities to close out games that are close or come back in games that you're behind in. This is not something you want to slam out right away, because your deck is designed to win with, it should be designed to win with cards in it other than this. This shouldn't be your win condition. This is an alternate win condition. This is a backup plan. And I think if you go ahead.
No, go for it. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, you're fine. And I think that when you look at the cards with the proper context, you realize it's not Mimi if you're using it at the right time, right? And that's the key, is when to use the card. Just like I was saying about Zul'jin earlier in the Hunter conversation, using this card at the right time is the difference between it being a meme card and being an excellent or a good decision card. Another example of that is playing Test Rogue or Espionage Rogue, right? Playing espionage, playing the Thaldori Striders, same thing. Playing those cards too early just saturates your deck, and that way you don't get the value out of the academic espionage cards, because you're not drawing them consistently enough to get the value out of the randomness, because you're getting all these random cards, but they're 1 mana, so you can get more of them. Or the reverse is true, where you've got so many of those cards that you're just getting random nonsense and you don't have anything to back it up with from the consistency of what's in your deck, right? So like when you play those decks, you wait till you get what? Your deck is thinned out, and then you start loading those things in, so you get consistent one or the other, consistent Thaldori Striders or consistent academic espionage, but then you have all these other cards that you've drawn that you can use to fill in with those. And when you do one or the other in improper balance, it just falls apart. So it's the same thing that applies here. Did I explain that well? Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, I understand exactly what you're saying. And I think you make a lot of really good points, especially when you make the analogy to Test Rogue. I think that's the perfect analogy to be made for what we currently know in the meta to this card. I honestly feel like it can be put in your deck as your primary win condition, because if you look at a lot of decks that people make, what's the biggest flaw that they make? Actually, when I look at them, I'm going to take it from my perspective. And when I look at people's decks and they ask me to look at them, I always have to ask, how does this deck win the game? I don't get it. Sure, you got a bunch of cool minions, a bunch of powerful cards, and there's some random spells sprinkled in that I don't understand, but there's no clear way to win the game. You're not going to win the game by curving out. You're not going to win the game with powerful minions. Like, you're not going to win the game with spells. There's no combo. You're not going to fatigue. There's no way. This actually gives you a way to win with just by putting a bunch of bad cards in a deck. It allows it exactly as you said. Should you have another way to win the game? Maybe, but it doesn't need to be as clearly defined. As in, like, if you were to take this and put them in one of the decks that I was just talking about, that deck now becomes good because it has enough. Yes. It has enough oomph to get there, but never finish it off. When we were talking about Bomb Warrior, I was talking about it was lacking the burst. This kind of fills that role in a Control Warlock deck. My biggest problem with Control Warlock is, again, it's the burst. How do you can only finish them off if you somehow cheated out Voidlord and then also played Gul'dan before you were dead.
Right.
That's why Control Warlock wasn't very good. Now there's a version running around with Omega Agent, and I think that this slots right into that deck. Like, I don't know. I think this card is great, and people aren't going to realize it's great until like June.
I agree, but I think it's something that can work now. What do you give it?
This is a 9 out of 10. Agree,
100%. This is one of the strongest cards that we reviewed.
It is definitely the strongest, but that does not make it the best. It definitely does the strongest things, though.
That's fair. For the value. I mean, if you get, I mean, how many legendaries do you need to get for this to be powerful? 1?
4.
Okay. If you turn one average Warlock card into a legendary, though, generally speaking, it's probably going to be pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I think we're in agreement, though. It's both. This was almost a 10 for me. Almost a 10 because but it's not. But I look at it, but specifically in Warlock, a 10 is Gul'dan because it's in every Warlock deck, pretty much. This isn't in every Warlock deck, but it's in 19 out of 20 of them, probably. except for the zoo decks. It's not gonna make zoo decks, but somebody will put it in the zoo deck because people put Gul'dan in zoo decks. So
people put Malkazar in zoo decks. So
it's true. This is true.
But Malkazar has a demon tag.
We're up on our next break. Do you want to take a break or you want to keep moving?
I just need about 35 seconds.
All right. We're going to take a 35-second break. I'm going to get some more ice, and we'll be right back, guys.